.45 remaining. Tatum drives down and throws it down. Bases loaded. 2 out. Hard hit into right. Back at the wall. Tie game. Big Poppy.
No icing. For the first time in 39 years, the Boston Bruins have won the Stanley Cup.
Anything possible!
Good evening, everyone, and welcome to another edition of Kicking with Kruse. And guess who's back? That's me, Ben Kruse. As you guys may have not have seen last week, there was a show, but I was not in it. You may be wondering why. I think James and Isaiah mentioned I had COVID. Yeah, it wasn't fun. And obviously, it's something where I highly advise you to try to not get it. But if you do, obviously, it's really a cold at the end of the day. So, but I'm doing a lot better for those that are wondering. Obviously I'm almost pretty much through the symptoms. I'm pretty much getting through there, but glad to be back and glad obviously to be back and talking sports with you guys and obviously getting that fun content out with you guys. Before getting into my co-host tonight, James, I just want to make sure to let you guys know to make sure to follow the IM6 and all the fun MI6 network shows. We're going to have pretty packed shows throughout the week. We'll see specifically about Extra Point this week. I will have another show on Thursday, as we're obviously going to do a lot of stuff Thursday night, get into a lot of our NFL Week 4 picks, our College 5 Week 5 picks, and a bunch more as well, too. And obviously, we'll have our other co-host, Isaiah Leon, coming later on tonight in the program. We look forward to having that. But right now, we have James Gonzalez, one of our co-hosts, as usual, joining on for our show for tonight. James, thanks again once again for coming on. And James, of course, was able to be holding down the fort from last week. So I do appreciate James for doing that. And hope you're having a good evening, my friend.
I'm good. You know, every time I watch that intro, I remember where I was when all those Boston things happened. I know exactly where I was and what years. I'm doing good, you know, between work and just following, you know, sports, of course. Tonight is just wild because you got the Angels and Rangers and you have the Astros and Mariners going on right now. So it's the time where you need multiple screens going for all the games. So it's a really good time to be a sports fan, especially upcoming on Thursday. So it's good to be here, and it's a good time right now.
I'll be perfectly honest with you, James, and another thing too about the Boston sports stuff. I'm pretty vivid in terms of where all of what my memories were in terms, at least for the 28-3 Super Bowl, is by far the best moment in my life. Obviously, off the air, we'll talk more about that if you want to. But yeah, I totally can concur with that with you as well. But yeah, like you mentioned, obviously there's a lot going on in baseball in terms of the playoff race. It's crazy to think. I don't know if it's just me, but like my mind hasn't really been kind of dig deep right now in baseball. It's crazy to think with all the football that's been going on as of late, and kind of just focusing myself onto that. Preseason hockey's coming around. Got basketball in a couple weeks, but obviously nothing better in sports than postseason baseball. And obviously, for those that are joined tonight, we obviously will go through that stuff. This is our last week of team reports. I know it's obviously it's finally kind of relieving. I love kind of doing them, but obviously for those that do know, both of our teams are mathematically been out of it for weeks. So it's kind of relieving now. We can finally be like, we're done with it and we can kind of focus on the off season. And obviously talk about some other teams that are actually playing meaningful baseball in October. And of course, then we'll get to our NFL, we'll get to some college football like usual, and get it through some stuff in the NFL specific in terms of the week 3 recaps. We'll obviously preview the pick of week 4, Thursday Night Football between the Lions and the Packers. We'll also talk about college week 4, as they're now getting to week 5. Crazy enough. They literally, it felt like week 1 was just yesterday. So yeah, lots to get into. And then obviously, if we do have time as well too, we'll talk about some basketball, but we'll kind of say that specifically, like I said, mostly football and baseball for tonight, and obviously more stuff on Thursday for other shows. So James, without further ado, my friend, this is the last MLB segment. Get ready, get hype. So without further ado, with your Angels, James. So with the AL West, obviously, it's a massive race in terms of this last week, in terms of where seeds are going to be with teams. Obviously, the Angels are now fourth place, kind of similar to where they were last year. They had a really good first half, really good hot start. Then Otani got hurt. Trout was never 100% healthy pretty much all year. And things just kind of went south the second half. So 70 and 87, 18 and a half now games back. They are playing right now actually against Texas, who is now they're currently actually up 9-1. Wow. But in terms of for Texas standard, they're obviously kind of looking at this in terms of making sure a lot of these players get healthy at this point in time. I know obviously teams are playing for seedings, but a lot of key players, I know we just played the Rays tonight. Obviously the games for us don't mean anything, but for a lot of the Rays players that played tonight, half of them, they're young kids and they scored 9 runs on us. So that pretty much says a lot in terms of how crazy that and deep that farm system is for the Rays. But I'll go to you, James, in terms of your Angels. Obviously, saved the best for last. Last week, team reports, get hype, like I mentioned. Anything you want to say for your last team report of my show?
Thank God it's going to be over after Sunday. For months now, the season has been lost. As you know, the trade deadline was a fun time because there was optimism. And then a couple of weeks later, everybody's waived except Grichuk. Literally, everybody's gone. Just that's the point where you just knew they were going to give up, and it hurt worse this season more than the seasons prior, where they had no shot, where they were not buyers but they were sellers. So that's what makes this season hurt the worst. 18 and a half out of first place, 16 out of the wild card. It seems like there was at one point, I think the Angels they had the third wild card spot back in, I think, June, and that's where they kept going down and down and down, where, 3 games, 5 games back, and then once you're at that point where you're 5 or 6 or more, you're pretty much out of it. And for a good couple of months, it's been like that. And
then when Otani got hurt, it was like, forget it, because obviously that kind of was really the trembling down effect. Really after that,
I'll tell you,
whatever could get worse got worse.
That the way that the Angels kind of handled that situation, or maybe it was Otani's cap, with the way that the locker was cleaned out. And there was a video overnight saying, like, oh, yeah, Otani flew over to Japan and he's going to get surgery over there. Well, that didn't really happen. And then he was back in the dugout the next night. So it was just bad PR. And it seems like on and off the field, the Angels just do that. And it's really just really a bad look on and off. The Angels need wholesale changes. Right now, they have a lot of kids playing, which is nice, but a lot of the veterans are getting hurt too. Like, Rengifo, a couple of weeks ago got hurt just warming up on the on-deck circle, just, getting his arms warmed up. Just little freak injuries. Like Sandoval yesterday got hurt in the Angels' 5-1 loss against Texas. Detmer's pitched okay today, or really good, I should say. He's finishing the year out well, but he's been a huge disappointment, along with Sandoval. Pretty much at her rotation, other from Otani, I would say. But everybody else in the rotation has been awful. And now the bullpen has been awful. Carlos Estevez, remember the all-star closer, he's blown so many saves in the second half. It's a tale of two halves, really, with our closer. And then the whole bullpen has just been bad. There was a lot of promise coming in for all these pitchers, and none of it's worked out. Tyler Anderson, the free agent acquisition, that hasn't worked out, and it's 2 more years of him. Rendon, all this year, has just been, in and out of the locker room, literally. He's out playing golf or whatever he wants to do. He's had a bad rapport with the reporters in the locker room about his health status. There's been confusion about how he actually hurt himself as well. and what it is reported as, what it is that he hurt and how long he's been hurt. And then they show him they have him running one night or one afternoon. So it's so everything, like I said, everything on and off the field has been bad. The play, the community relations, it's just been really, really bad. And just for the team, I think literally they're just playing the season out, like you mentioned, 70-87. They're the fourth worst in the AL. And looks like they got that spot locked up unless they catch Cleveland and Detroit. But it's just deflating again to be down low behind Cleveland and Detroit again, like they were last year. That really is deflating because you think about all the expectations coming in this year with Trout and Ohtani. Now, none of them are playing. And there's talk that, okay, Ohtani's not coming back in the free agency this year or after the season. And Trout, if he's wanting to really bad, he can ask for a trade and waive that trade clause, and he can go anywhere, he wants to. But that's going to be the big topic along with Shohei. So the offseason is going to be really bad as well. But there's been some kids that have come up, have been done well. No, I'll end it on this. The positive bright spot, a couple of players. Brandon Drury, when he's healthy, he's really good. He drives in runners. He gets home runs. Like he got a couple of RBIs tonight on a double. He could be really good when healthy. And then Nolan Schanuel, if you remember, he was the 18th pick, I believe, in this year's MLB draft back in July. And guess what? They brought him up at the beginning of this month, it seemed like. And it's just weird. The Angels have had all these draft picks. The same year that they get drafted, they're called up. It happened with Chase Silseth, Zach Neto, and now with Schanuel. So he's a first baseman now, Florida Atlantic. He's a really solid hitter. He can go the opposite way. He had his first home run last week. But he's a pure hitter. That's what I like about him. And he's an okay fielder as well. But, he's only, I think, 23, 22 years old. But, and he's probably, him and Drury are probably the bright spots of the team only. Nobody really pitching because they go up and down or they're really down. So it's just been unfortunate. And yeah, thank God the season's over. Like the next time we do this show or after next week, you won't see any of this. I'm going to be moving everything that way. So you'll see something else.
I don't blame you.
So all this will be done with. And thank God. I just want the season to get over. But the thing is, the offseason may hurt more than the regular season because of the loss of players. So that's going to be a tough thing. So for the Angels, just playing the season out. And they have one more with Texas after tonight, off Thursday. And then 3 against the Oakland A's. And that's it. And we'll see what happens after. I might go on Saturday because I have an A's fan that wants to go for some reason. And I'm like, I don't want no part of it, but I said I would go. So my big mouth made that possible. So, check me out. I'll mention Halos in the Infield, what I do the pre-games there. Pre-game shows and podcasts covering the Angels, and we don't mess around. We like to critique and criticize, unlike the media does, the soft media does with the Angels. We do it where, hey, we're telling the truth about players. We're hard on Rendon. We're skeptical on Trout. We know Ohtani's leaving, so check us out on Halos in the Infield. I know there's going to be a lot of talk about Trout and Ohtani, and we'll be covering it all. We'll probably go live whenever Ohtani has a decision, and then if Trout asks for a trade, we'll be on live with that. So check us out on Halos in the Infield for more Angels coverage.
You heard it here first from James Gonzalez, the Angel fan that I know. So make sure to tune in for his stuff specifically. I'll go to my stuff now. So the Red Sox specifically, and best of luck, obviously, James. Actually, next week we're not really going to do a team report for your Angels, so you don't have to really worry about that. But what I will ask you next week is about your overall evaluation of the season. So obviously, kind of how you felt about. Yeah. It'll be the time to be able to evaluate the Angels for this season, and obviously players that you want to keep for this offseason, and obviously the Ohtani and Trout stuff is obviously a massive thing. So we're going to talk about that next week. So obviously keep that in mind. So for my Red Sox specifically, they are 76-81. Let's see. They're only 6 games up in terms of wins over your Angels right now. Crazy to think, but yeah, they're completely out of it now. They're sliding. They're 10 games back. They just lost tonight, 9-7 to Tampa Bay. Even though they made a valiant comeback, they were down 7-0. Then they made it 7-5 at one point. Then it was 9-5. Then it was 9-7. They had a chance to even tie it, I think, one of the innings. But to be frankly honest with you, James, these games, I don't really care win or lose at this point. It's about in terms of developing the young guys. You're seeing guys now like Willie Abreu and Emmanuel Valdez, like guys like played tonight. They were in the Christian Vasquez trade for you that don't know about those two guys. 2 prospects from Houston. Cedane Rafaela came up from Double-A the last couple weeks. He's been playing really, really well. They've been playing him at the outfield. They've been playing him at second base. A lot of young pitchers have been getting a chance to pitch. You guys like Zach Kelly pitched tonight. Also, the thing about the Red Sox right now, and I'll kind of talk about them next week in terms of my evaluation, is their starting rotation is obviously the biggest question. It's the mess, because the bullpen this year has been very good, but it's the matter in terms of having at least – from 1 to 5, what can you get at least to the middle innings to get to your bullpen? And that's what the Red Sox really struggle with is outside of Brian Dale, but he's a young kid. How far can he be able to take you consistently, start and start out? Guys like Tanner Houck, Cutter Crawford, Nick Pivetta, those guys are the 3 guys are kind of like bulk guys. So they're essentially, they can eat innings, but they're not really – you essentially could put them as your 5, but you really kind of don't know where specifically in your 5 or your 4 is going to be. Chris Sale, let's be all real, he is not a 1. He's not a 2 anymore. So for the Red Sox and for all the fans that think it's not. It's sorry to think he's had injury problems, and he's not trustable enough. And I love Chris Sale. I've been grateful for him, but when you essentially look at this offseason specifically, he has to be more of your 3. Or actually even your 4. He's at least at this point has number 3 potential still, but nothing ever is pretty much above number 3 potential. So whether it's Aaron Nola, whether it's Yamamoto, who obviously is on my top of my list, they essentially have to get some Bulldogs at the top of the rotation going into next season, and actually showing me that they can spend some money because Chaim Bloom, obviously, who the guys that don't know, he got fired a couple weeks ago, which kind of really I'd say is the highlight really for me. Even though I do like Chaim, I'm grateful in terms of what he was able to do with the farm system. It was clear to me specifically that there was some stuff behind the scenes that more like kind of look into it that they had to make a decision that was going to be tough, essentially an executive business decision. And obviously one of either Core or Bloom would probably have to go because the Red Sox since 2020 have only made the playoffs once. That's absolutely unacceptable in terms of Chaim's tenure. So something obviously had to change. And of course, last year that being in last place is unacceptable unless something crazy happens throughout the rest of this end of this week when they play Baltimore, which I don't think they're going to win. They have 4 games. They might split. Even split, it's not really going to matter in terms of where they're going to finish. They might go under 500 again, which would be an absolute massive failure. So they have a couple more against the Rays. They have 2 more, actually 1 more against the Rays. They only have a 2-game series against them this week. And then they have 4 games against the Orioles, and that'll be it. Yeah, it's the last team report of the season. It's obviously, as tough it is for the season's over, it's kind of bittersweet too, right? Because baseball season, you start from April and you're just like, man, 162 games a season, you're always excited. But when you're not playing October baseball, it's like, man, just get me out of here. It's almost like living in a dream, and it's just like, can we please get out of this dream? Like essentially, it's something that's been going on and on and on and on, and I'm just really excited for this off season. I don't know if you got the chance. I don't know if you know Will Middlebrooks is, James,
Yeah.
former Red Sox. So obviously, I don't want to get my hopes up, but he had a podcast. I don't know if you got the chance to hear this cut. I could even show you like a link or whatever off the air when we get the chance to be done. But apparently, what he's been, I guess, hearing, obviously, I don't know specifically any type of sources, but obviously, Jared Carabas, who is essentially a pod, shout out to Jared, he's the man. Two guys specifically that are kind of connected with the team, they seem to sound like they are going to be, Red Sox are going to be massively aggressive this offseason in terms of doing something. Will Middlebrooks said that they might even be in specifically on this Shohei Ohtani sweepstakes, the Red Sox. So we will see specifically in terms of how deep that could be, in terms of how much that could be. But like I said, obviously we have to kind of see in terms of where they're going to be. But it looks like direction is they might start to spend like the Red Sox of old, if you kind of know what I'm getting get into, because they used to be that way, and they obviously stopped doing that because they wanted to restock the farm. But we'll have to see specifically in terms of where things go from here. So, yeah, it's obviously been a really tough season, kind of finished out the second half of the season. Yeah, it's what it is, I guess. So, Isaiah came in, said, "What's up, guys?" Isaiah, thanks for joining. We look forward to having you on soon. Before we get into the other stuff for baseball, James, anything you want to add? Looked like you want to say something.
Oh, no. I knew. I keep hearing about Shohei Ohtani, wanting to stay in the West Coast, but I saw that Mets series when he was playing the Mets, and it seemed like everybody loved him. There were no boos by the Met fans.
Oh, yeah.
It was just cheers. Everything he did, even if he fouled a ball off and it went like 350 feet, everybody gasped and everybody enjoyed it. So it shows, though, he could play in any market, so that Boston rumor isn't really off. So I think everywhere is in play. That's a big market.
Yeah, of course. And, he is essentially going to be the biggest, not only the biggest piece of this offseason, James, but he could be in terms of sports history, in terms of the next big star that will have to make the next decision in terms of this is like a LeBron type of next team type of thing. That's how big he is, across the world. And obviously, I was privileged, James, for this season to see the Red Sox play Shohei in probably his last year in an Angel uniform, which is crazy to think. Obviously, it's pretty bittersweet, but I really wanted to see it, and I'm glad enough to see it. That was part of the highlight in terms of my baseball season, was to go see him, in person, play live. That was obviously on my bucket list, and I got the chance to for actually 2 games. And the Red Sox obviously, thankfully, actually won both of those games, but it was good to see Shohei as well play really, really well. So, all right, so those are our team reports. Let's actually go into some teams that are going to be playing in the playoffs, or at least they're going to. So obviously we can't relate, but obviously it's a really fun time for those that are. And there were some teams, James, that actually clinched tonight. One of them is Isaiah's Philadelphia Phillies, as well as the Milwaukee Brewers have officially clinched the NL Central as well. Would you like to quickly have any reactions to any of those clinchers, I guess you can say? And in terms of, we'll get into the playoff bracket as well, in terms of where the standings are as of right now. But are any of those 2 teams that kind of stayed out to you in terms of some threats to go deep at all in October?
I don't think you can never count out the Phillies. I mean, Milwaukee, it just depends on the matchup, honestly. But both teams, in a sense, kind of struggled to get where they are, to get to the main goal, just to get into the postseason. I mean, when you talk about the Phillies, when you heard Isaiah, early, he thought, let's fire everybody, let's trade everybody, let's do all this and all that. Well, that's why the season, it's a marathon. It's not a sprint. Like, anything can happen. Like, they can get better. And they went out and, made some little moves, but then Harper came back. they did so well. So maybe Philadelphia, especially at home, I mean, they could rally around their fans like they did last postseason and really do some damage again. I don't know if they'll make the World Series, though. I think it'll probably be Braves and Dodgers. But Milwaukee, hey, good for them. You know, I had St. Louis for the division.
Ooh,
They
I don't know what
messed.
happened there.
I didn't. That was all them.
Yeah.
Whatever the Cardinal way is, was, and it's not there right now.
Wasn't it this year?
Yeah, they need a whole change like the Angels do. But hey, credit to Milwaukee. You know, they hit enough. And then with their rotation and their bullpen, that could lead them to somewhere really they haven't been in a while. So credit to those two teams. I know Philly had to do it in extra innings against Pittsburgh tonight, but their fans stuck around even on a weekday to watch that happen. So that was a little fun for them. The crowd sounded like a postseason game, honestly. Tonight, watching the finish of that. That was really nice. So credit to those two teams that I think people had doubts about.
Definitely. So I'm going to try to see if we can get this playoff picture to our background here. So for our viewers to take a look at it. So just give me a couple quick seconds here. But in terms of while I'm working on that, I'm going to react specifically in terms of the Phillies. I mean, credit to them. Obviously, they had a really good season. They obviously had a really fun stretch last year. They were able to catch some fire. And then obviously look at the Brewers. Obviously a good story. They have really 3 stud pitchers: Corbin Burns, Brandon Woodruff, and Freddie Peralta. And they have some decent, star players. I mean, I felt like Christian Yelich kind of had a season that no one really talked about. He's kind of the guy that goes under the radar. They have Rowdy Tellez, they have Contreras. I always forget, they have William Contreras.
Yeah.
He's a really good young catcher. Obviously, every single time I remember the Brewers, I think of the older, the Lorenzo Cain, the Ryan Braun days. But they always have a really good type of year in year out type of group of really good players, like complementary players that really play well.
Yeah.
So congrats to them as well, Craig Counsell, who could be actually a name to watch out for in the offseason in terms of some managing. But looks like right here, I did get the postseason watch as of right now. So we will obviously. That's obviously something right now. Oh, that's pretty much there. So James, obviously you got kind of quickly the chance glimpse of that bracket. Between the Astros, Twins, and Blue Jays, Rays, is there any type of series? I mean, the Blue Jays, Rays could be a really fascinating series. The Blue Jays would have to go to the Trop, which I don't think would be exciting for any team right now. Although the Rays need to have pitching, and specifically without McClanahan, obviously down for the whole season. Glass now obviously will probably be back soon. So that's obviously exciting for them. As well as we also have exciting. Speaking of exciting, we'll also have our other co-host, Isaiah, for tonight. Isaiah, as I'm continuing talking about the postseason picture. And then right now, the Orioles and the Rangers right now, guys, have the buys in the playoffs and right now for today for the American League, which is crazy. If you asked me before the regular season this year, would you guys have the Orioles and the Rangers be your first two teams to have a first-round bye? Probably not, right? Yeah, so it's just crazy to think. All games are obviously going to have the best of 3 for the wild card in terms of the higher seeds. So obviously the Twins are now with the 3rd seed, the Astros are the 6th seed, because obviously the Astros are not leading the division for once, which is crazy. And then obviously the Rays have the higher seed of Blue Jays, which is 4 or 5. On the NL wild card, right now, the Cubs are going to be at Milwaukee. So the Cubs are now be the 6th seed, going to Milwaukee be the 3 seed. The D-backs will be going to Isaiah's Philadelphia Phillies, of the season ended right today, a 5-4, which would be actually a really awesome series. So obviously, like I said, guys, this is at the season end today, but I think a lot of these type of matchups are pretty close to being finalized unless something drastically happens from here on out. And then I'll go to the division series, but I'll get to Isaiah really quick. Isaiah, obviously, you seem like you're comfortable. You're outside. I told James it's good I am back this week, back and better than ever. How are you doing, my friend?
What's up, guys? I'm doing great, Ben. It's great to see you, man. We missed you last week. Glad to see that you're healthy, my man, and back on the program. It's a great day because, the Phillies are back into the postseason for the 2nd straight year. Before last season, we hadn't made the playoffs since like 2011, I think, which was Roy Halladay's final year in the major leagues. But yeah, man, it's great to be back in the playoffs. The funny thing and the crazy thing about the baseball playoffs, and I think it's why we love baseball and the playoffs so much, is because unlike the NBA, unlike the NFL, with baseball, anything can happen, honestly. Like, you really don't, who the favorites are, but they're not really like the concrete favorites like they are in the NFL or the NBA, where majority of the time, those teams are like the teams that always win. So I'm very excited for the baseball playoffs to start next week, man. We're in for a thrilling race this week with the AL West. You have the Rangers, the Mariners, and the Astros going at it. I mean, I still can't believe, Ben and James, that Texas swept Seattle, and not just did Texas sweep Seattle. I mean, that was surprising in of itself, but Kansas City, those 54-win Kansas City Royals go into Minute Maid Park, one of the toughest stadiums to play, and they sweep the Astros. Like, I just couldn't believe that. Like, I honestly could not believe what transpired. Obviously, the Rangers, they were losing to the Angels, I believe, yesterday. They were losing like 1-0, and then James's Angels gave up like back-to-back home runs to give the Rangers the win. I mean, I still think Jimmy Herget is the guy that gave it up, who used to play for the Rangers, who now pitches for the Angels. James, your Angels might want to investigate him for secretly being a Rangers employee still and being on the books, because I mean, he gave a back-to-back home runs, and it was literally first pitch right down the middle to Corey Seager, Adolis Garcia, and the other guy, I think, was like Josh Young or someone that hit that home run. But
Nate Lowe. Nate Lowe's a really
Nate
good power
Lowe, that's
too.
right. Nate Lowe was that guy. But yeah, I mean, great to see you guys, man. And we are in for a great weekend. You got the baseball playoffs or the baseball final weekend this week, and then you have the NFL, starting with the Packers and Lions this upcoming Thursday. We got a lot of great matchups. And then we have the NBA Media Day starts next week. And then we got college football, man. We got some exciting matchups this week. So, I mean, truly, I honestly don't know what to watch this weekend and also next week as well.
For sure, definitely. Isaiah, when you were off before you came on, James and I did our last MLB team segments. We were able to essentially take off everything that we did from the second half of the season off our chest. We didn't really rant it around. We just kind of just went through it. Obviously, like Isaiah, like you said, though, your Phillies, they clinched the playoffs start tonight. Obviously, if you want to, we could save your team reports for the end before we get into football. So obviously keep that in mind in terms of what you want to say now. Obviously with the A's, you're probably just out of whatever at this point in time. It's kind of like for me, my Red Sox and James' Angels, season's almost over, or at least for regular season. But I do also want to mention as well too. So we talked about the wild card series in terms of the best of 3 that start October 3rd. So obviously mark your calendars on that. The divisional series will start October 7th. So that's going to be on next week and next Saturday. I don't know. I'll have to take a look really quick. I'm just kind of phone on movie.com. Next Saturday, October 7th, which I believe I'm actually off from work that day and the Sunday the 8th. So I'm happy about that. So I got the chance to watch a lot of it. So yeah, best of 5 format right now, guys. So if this is obviously if the season ends today, you would have the Rays and Blue Jays series play the winner. That winner series of that series would play in Baltimore, and then you would have the winner of the Twins Astros series go to play the Rangers. Imagine you have the Astros going to the Rangers, the Battle of Texas, going at it, which I think specifically that the Astros would just demolish them because they just were just demolishing them come during the regular season. I just don't know, especially with the Rangers. Losing Max Scherzer is just a massive blow. He's a big game pitcher. You lose him specifically for a series potentially like that. But the Rangers, I think, can still make noise. They obviously have a really good lineup. And plus, they're really starting to catch some fire at the end of the Red Sox series, of course. It's kind of like James' Angels. If you essentially play a team like ours and, you're struggling, you can kind of get back on track. And really, it's pretty much that's the case with our pitchers. In terms of the NL Division Series, right now, best format. Hey, Isaiah, buckle up. If your Phillies, as of right now, were able to beat the Diamondbacks, if the season ended by today, you would have to go to play the Braves for the divisional series. And that would be a really fun division series for sure. And then the Brewers Cubs would play the winner to go play the Dodgers. So that would be that specific series. So we're going to be in for a treat, guys. And obviously we'll talk more about this probably on Thursday. But right now, I mean, a lot of these teams now officially, if they haven't clinched yet, the teams that right now have clinched are the Orioles, the Twins, the Rays, the Braves, the Dodgers, the Phillies, and the Brewers. We'll quickly go to the AL and NL wildcard. Right now, the Mariners are up 5-0 over the Astros. The Astros won yesterday. They're now the Mariners are on the bottom of fifth. They really need this game. They're 1.5 games behind in the wild card. The third wild card spot right now is Houston. Toronto right now has the second, and then obviously Tampa has the first. But they obviously have clinched. They're obviously pushing right now for the division. So I'll go to you guys right now. Obviously, Isaiah, if you want to talk about your Phillies, by all means, part of your team reports, you can. I'll go to you first, James, in terms of what are some of your teams to kind of watch out for throughout the rest of the week that haven't clinched yet, as obviously they're leading up to postseason play. And then in terms of this weekend, you got the Rays and Blue Jays facing off each other. That's obviously going to be a lot of fun, a lot of stakes type of series. We're playing the Orioles, and obviously not for us that means a lot, but for the Orioles it definitely does. The Guardians and the Tigers, you're like, why would you ask me that? It's Miguel Cabrera's last full weekend of playing baseball. Just take a look at that. The legend of Miggy. And then you have, let's see here, the A's and Angels. Buckle up. That's gonna be, it's gonna be a great one, everybody.
Yay, James! Both of us facing off. Let's go.
That's gonna feel like the Broncos Bears on Sunday coming up. But we'll talk about that for another day. The Dodgers at Giants is this weekend, and then the Rangers at the Mariners this weekend. So Texas at Seattle, Dodgers at Giants, the Rays of the Blue Jays, and then the Sox obviously are out, but the Orioles obviously. So I'll go and let you guys take the floor from here. James, in terms of teams that haven't made it yet, who are some teams that you're looking at right now to try to squeeze in? I know obviously the NL wildcard's still kind of up for grabs right now. And just anything else that obviously you wanted to talk about before I get to Isaiah.
Well, I was also looking at the weekend. I'm seeing the Astros are in Arizona face the Diamondbacks. I mean, that is huge. Looking at that series.
Cubs and Brewers.
Yeah, and I just saw that too because who knows if things stay the way they are. We'll see you next week, just like the Rays and the Jays. So it's funny how these things can go sometimes. For the American League wild card, I'm really looking to see, who will get those 2 spots out of the 3 teams trying to get it. Toronto, it just seems like they're up and down every couple of weeks. They're either in hell or they get out of it and they look good again. It's just something up and down about them. And I think everybody had them in at least as the second wild card where they are now, but not having such a hard time at, getting there. And then for Houston, as Isaiah mentioned, losing, getting swept by the Royals in your own house, that should never ever happen. I mean, maybe the Royals took it as, hey, this is our playoffs. This is our World Series. Let's go beat the Astros somehow, and they did it 3 straight. I don't know how that happened, but little lapses like that, it really hurts. And as I'm watching tonight, as they're down 5-0 in Seattle, you could kind of see these little cracks, in the ship right now with Houston, where, hey, something's not right. And either it's the pitching. I know they've had a couple of defensive errors, throwing errors that led to runs. 2 balls that went into the camera well, if you can believe that. That's really big too. And Altuve made the error, and then Bregman had the error not trying to catch the ball and tag a runner. So all year long, I mean, Bregman's had multiple errors this year that really hurt. So I think the thing that's killing them is other from Verlander, and there's glimpses of Framber Valdez doing really great, but then the rest of the rotation isn't doing well. So look out for that for Houston. And then with the Rangers and the Mariners playing this weekend, 4 games straight, that is going to be ridiculous. I mean, I just saw last night I saw where the series will mostly likely be sold out. I mean, they already have the first 3 games, or the latter 3 games sold out, but not Thursday. We'll see if they get Thursday sold out. I mentioned to Isaiah yesterday, and this happened last year where they had series sold out before it started, but it was a weird thing because Seattle never sold out any series. Right. They never said, standing room only or anything like that. But now there's a baseball fever there. They go as J-Rod goes, basically.
Definitely.
So it's going to be amazing to see how this AL wild card ends up. And my guess is Toronto falls out, and then Houston and Seattle is in it. But even Texas can fall out, though. You never know if they pitch the way they are tonight. Their bullpen has been suspect. For a good 2-3 months, where they were reliable at first, and then Chapman just had the worst couple of weeks that I can think of anybody ever having. So maybe Texas will fall out. They've been up and down, and then they went on a hot streak, and I guess it's all about streaks. For the National League, really quick, shout out to the Phillies of getting the wild card, the first wild card sewed up. Now you get at the Diamondbacks, and they're 1 game ahead in that wild card for the second wild card. And shout out to them; they were not supposed to be here. Yeah. I did have them in 3rd place, but not maybe competing for the wild card, but not actually getting one. And they've done that, through their speed and clutch hitting. Look at Tommy Pham, Corbin Carroll, Alec Thomas, Christian Walker. McCarthy brings the speed in the lower part of the lineup. They have a really great pitching staff. They went out and traded for Seattle's closer. I don't know what it is, but Seattle keeps trading their closers to others. But they went out and got Sewald to be their closer. So that was a really great move. That kind of put them on top of everybody else, how it is now. And then Chicago, they lost maybe in the worst way tonight. Maybe it wasn't Walker, but Suzuki in right field, it looks like maybe that he was going to get called off by the center fielder. That ball went right by the glove, and 2 runs scored, and the Braves went on to win 8-7. When they were down, I think at
6-0.
It was 6-0. I thought, uh-oh. But credit to Braves coming back like they do. And now you look at Miami, a half game out, Cincinnati 1.5 out. San Francisco needs a lot of help. They're 4 games out. Basically, everybody would have to lose that's in front of them for them to sweep and get in. And they're down 4-0 in the bottom of the 9th, 1 out and 1 on. So it looks like San Francisco, along with San Diego, will be out. But, credit to Miami for staying in it. And Cincinnati, I would love to see Cincinnati somehow sneak in. I mean, when you look at those three teams, the Cubs, the Miami Marlins, and the Reds, none of them were supposed to be in it. Miami, they were supposed to show like, hey, maybe we'll hover around 500, maybe we'll be okay. But credit to them, they've stayed in it. So maybe it looks like Philly, Arizona, and it's a 3-team race for that one spot, and the Cubs would have to get hot. I don't know. It'd be cool to see Cincinnati get it, but you would figure the Cubs, they have to shake off somehow tonight's loss. That's going to be tough. I don't know how that's going to shake out with those 3 teams. Cincinnati's going to have to come up big for the weekend series. It's going to be a tough one. I forget who the Reds are playing in the weekend.
But... Yeah, I didn't mention that.
They're in St. Louis. Miami is playing Pittsburgh.
Ooh.
So it seems like it's all winnable games for those teams that really need it.
And the Cubs are playing the Brewers.
Yeah, and the Cubs and Brewers. The Diamondbacks are playing Houston. I don't know how that's going to shape up, but it's going to be a fun weekend. I mean, it's already fun right now.
Yeah.
I wish I was a part of it, damn it. But
yeah, me too.
Yeah, but yeah,
next year.
Both never again. That's what it feels like. But yeah, the wild card race is going to be fun, and then whoever wins out West in the American League is going to be fun.
Before we get to Isaiah, the thing about you mentioned, James, with the NL wildcard teams, the Cubs, the Marlins, and the Reds. The biggest thing about the playoffs is what you need is big time pitching. You at least need 2 to 3, at least 2 max really good pitchers. For the Marlins, you got Sandy Alcantara down for the season. That's going to be massive if they want to make the playoffs. Yuri Perez and Edward Cabrera, 2 really young studs, but do you trust them in the playoffs? Braxton Garrett, I don't know. Then you have the Reds, you have Hunter Green. There's not really a lot that you could be like, Andrew Abbott. No, that's kind of young. And then you look at the what was the other team? The Cubs, Justin Steele. And then you have
he balled out tonight.
He's probably going to be candidate for NL Cy Young outside of Blake Snell, who is a monster in the second half. Oh my God. But outside of Steele, it's like really, Kyle Hendricks is obviously older. They really, those 3 teams, which is so fascinating, is there's not really a really good second tier, type of pitcher, which you really need down the playoffs. So it's almost like if one of those teams makes it in, it's like, how deep can they get in specifically? The Phillies, Nola, Wheeler. You look at the Diamondbacks, Gallen, Merrill Kelly, who's been really good this year. You look at the Brewers, Burns, Woodruff. You look at, the Astros, Valdez, Verlander. You kind of see that, overall, where I'm getting to. So you really need to have 1-2 really good time pitchers. I remember the Red Sox days from the postseason. 2013, Lackey, Lester. Those are kind of the Bulldogs. You really, really need to have some Bulldogs specifically. So, we'll see specifically in terms of where things go. Isaiah, I'll go to you. Obviously, your Phillies are in it. So if you want to mention some stuff, by all means, that's fine. But just your overall reactions to this last weekend, really of this regular season, it's very bittersweet. But as they say in Philadelphia, it's going to be another Red October.
Exactly, man. Exactly. I can't wait for that Red October, man. Sorry, James, we stole that from your Angels, but you always got next year, buddy. You always got next year. But
okay, we haven't used the slogan since like 2004, so it's all good.
Well, you'll have a new manager too, so you'll be good. But when you think about the final week, right? I mean, there's a lot of, you guys mentioned it. There's a lot of exciting races coming down the stretch. The AL West, the AL wild card. You got, I believe, 3 teams fighting for 2 spots. You got the NL wild card as well. That's not settled. I mean, you just have so many close races, and it's not like they're separated by just like 2 games or whatever. They're separated by only a half game. I mean, that's how crazy close that this race is going to be. You mentioned, James, in the National League where you got the Marlins, you got the Cubs, you got the Reds all fighting for that last spot. I think Chicago ultimately will get bounced out because they have the harder schedule. You look at who they play. They got the Braves for a 3-game set this week, and then they have this weekend. They play at the Brewers to conclude the regular season. So that's really, really tough to end the season with Braves and Brewers. And then you look at Miami. Miami plays the Mets, I believe, for 3. Though tonight's game got postponed. I think they'll make it up probably tomorrow. And then they play the Pittsburgh Pirates, 2 bad teams to end the season. The Reds. I think the Reds play the Cardinals. That's the weekend series.
Yeah.
And then, yeah. And then I forget off the top of my head who do they play this week
They're
before the
Guardians.
They play the Guardians. Okay, so.
So tough.
I honestly think if I had to pick a team that I think will make it in the NL wild card, I think it's going to be the Marlins because they have the easier schedule. The Chicago Cubs have a really difficult schedule. If it was at home, I probably would give that more of a shot, but it's on the road, so it's even tougher. So yeah, I mean that's going to be a fun race. You look at the Rangers and Mariners series, like James mentioned. I mean, I was thinking about going to that Thursday game because, the airline that I work for, they sponsor the Mariners, and the Mariners are actually giving us heavily discounted tickets, and we got $10 tickets to be in the upper deck and watch. And I was thinking about going there because it's just going to be such a great series, but I don't know if I'll have time, but I mean, that's going to be a very fun series to watch. And, Houston's playing the Diamondbacks. I mean, the Diamondbacks are a team that's very tough at home to beat. And then you look at the wild card races in the AL. I mean, you got the Mariners, you got the Rangers could potentially get bounced, like James, you mentioned. And don't forget, a big blow might have happened to the Rangers tonight as Corey Seager actually left the game after getting hit in the forearm. So, hopefully that does not hopefully that does not reveal any fractures or anything like that. But I mean, if the Rangers lose Seager, I mean that is a massive blow for them if they end up losing him. So yeah, if I'm a Rangers fan, I'm definitely worried about that. The Blue Jays, they play the Yankees for two more after tonight, and then they have 3 against the Rays. That's a really difficult schedule. But the problem with the Blue Jays, the Mariners, and the Astros is they just tend to choke in the worst possible times when you don't expect it. Like, who expected the Astros to get swept by the Royals? The Mariners getting swept by the Rangers, although it was kind of unexpected, though you could have kind of saw it. And then the Blue Jays, I mean, they're very up and down as well. So it's definitely going to be a very, very fun race down the stretch. And I can't wait to watch how it unfolds. And I'm also waiting to see how it unfolds with some of the bad teams. You look at the Yankees and all these, the Giants as well, because there's potentially jobs that could be at stake this upcoming weekend, especially with Farhan Zaidi and Gabe Kapler. Who knows if they'll be back? I know the owner said they'll be back, but that was before the Giants went 9-17 thus far in September. So, there's definitely going to be a lot of managers that could potentially get fired. And also, Ben, you forgot to mention when you were talking about the Tigers and the Guardians series, not only is this going to be Miguel Cabrera's last series, but it's more than likely going to be Terry Francona's last series as a manager because
he's retiring.
Yeah, he's already, I think, heavily indicated that he's going to be retiring after the season.
Yeah. So, obviously, one thing about Terry, I just want to thank him because obviously he was a Red Sox manager for everything. And Isaiah, you legitimately had the best transition in terms of managerial stuff because that's actually what we're going to talk about right now in terms of some managers that could essentially be on the hot seat coming into this off season. So, without further ado, we're going to do kind of a little game here. I'm going to name some managers, and I obviously want to kind of let you guys know specifically in terms of you guys think they're gone in terms of obviously you don't have to kind of see like where they're going to be gone. Obviously, James, I guess we'll kind of have you before Isaiah comes back on, but I'll give you a couple names, and we'll start with I guess you could say your manager because Phil Nevin's probably going to be a massive guy to watch. So I think specifically he's gone. Personally, for me, I think he's going to be in the hot seat. I think that the Angels really need to kind of look in the mirror in terms of their front office and really find a voice specifically. Now, in terms of their star specific, in terms of how they feel about playing for a guy like Phil Nevin, I don't know how they feel about playing for a guy like Phil Nevin, but I think specifically he is more of a short-term type of guy anyway. And I think they might have to get a guy that's going to be a little bit younger and kind of look at the long term at a lot of their guys that they have coming up. So I think that he is going to be moving on. How about you?
Yeah, what you said was true about him. The thing is today, Mike, I think it was yesterday or today, I can't remember, but Mike Trout was saying like, well, we like, Phil, he's a player's coach and everybody likes playing for him. That might be pretty bad because whatever Mike Trout, vouches for someone, they did that after last season. That's why Phil Nevin was brought back. So I'm hoping that doesn't happen. I hope that's the case. I would think, though, if you had a team like this where you're prepared for the postseason, ready to go, and then you don't get there, you shouldn't be back. That's obvious. That's really obvious. I'm going to say he won't be brought back after this year. I just hope they don't fall in that trap again where they say, oh, well, we need some stability when it's the wrong guy and you can get out of it without paying somebody. Remember, the last two Angel managers are still being paid. Brad Osmus, and then they saw that Joe Madden was available and they're still paying for him. So just to remind you of that, they're still paying the last two managers. So maybe they go the young route. For me, I've always wanted Ron Washington, but I know he's older. He's with a great organization like the Braves. I'm hoping the Angels GM can, that has a Braves background. And also the scouts are with the Angels now. So I'm hoping that, they can bring Washington there. I think he's a great fundamentals guy. And then he's great with the players. Like he'll set them straight. He'll have a tight clubhouse, but a fun clubhouse. They need somebody with like leadership skills, and I don't think Phil Nevin was that guy ever. Now coming in though, he was supposed to be that guy. Like his demeanor and all that, especially when he played, he was a fiery person. And he's not really tough on these guys. They don't react to that. Maybe it's a generational gap thing. But yeah, it hasn't worked out. I don't care how the Angels, finished last season. That's why Nevin was brought back. He failed this season poorly. So, I think he's not going to be brought back.
After a very disappointing season for the St. Louis Cardinals, there's been a lot of talks of Olivier Marmol that could be gone. I don't know specifically about this one. I know, obviously, that they probably want to keep their long-term guys. Obviously, there's talks of, they moved on from Jordan Montgomery. They moved on from Jack Flaherty, kind of their two pitchers, but they kept guys like Nolan Arenado, Paul Goldschmidt, obviously. But I felt like they weren't going to go anywhere regardless. They even kept Tommy Edman. Billy Donovan was hurt, so he wasn't going to be really tradable. I think that there's going to be consideration of him being gone, but unless there's a better option out there, which I think that there's probably going to be something, I think he stays. How about you?
I personally think that they should fire him or let him go.
Right.
Because the players really aren't adapting to him. Remember the whole thing at the beginning of the season, and this happened last year as well, with Tyler O'Neill not hustling. Down the first base line or whatever it was around the bases. 2 times that's happened, and it's just something where that's not acceptable. And there's no accountability. What do you have that guy in there if he's not going to show any leadership? And It seems like he rubs all the umpires the wrong way. Like there's no respect towards him, so that's not a good thing to have too, especially on a great organization like the St. Louis Cardinals. But I don't know if they should. But I don't know. I'm at that point where I think they should, but we'll see what happens. You know what I really hope would happen would Yadier Molina somehow becomes manager. That'd be awesome. But he doesn't have that managerial skill, even though he's a catcher, and usually catchers are managers, like Mike Matheny was before. But I say yes with them firing Marmol. They need to find someone that people will listen to, and then people will follow and get back to that Cardinal way. Oh, you're on mute, Ben.
I apologize about that. The next guy that I'm going to talk about that's a big, heavily topic type guy around here in Meyer is Aaron Boone, manager of the New York Yankees. After a very, very disappointing season for the Yankees, not even making the playoffs for I feel like the first time in forever, thank God, because if the Red Sox are going to go down ship, how about the Yankees go down ship for once? And not even being in October actually for them, I can actually be like, thank God. But after the recent comments of Aaron Judge saying that he's been fully supportive of Aaron Boone in terms of where he feels confident in terms of his long term, I don't see him being gone. I think there's going to be a lot more of Brian Cashman being potentially a guy down the road that could be gone because the Yankees' philosophy has not been changing. It's essentially been a very dull type of organization that is very hesitant of making changes. They obviously waited for a while to even make changes to their young kids when they essentially kind of really balled out. I mean, Jason Dominguez, Austin Wells, Osvaldo Peraza really played well in September, but they kept guys like Josh Donaldson still around the second half of the season before they cut him, just for Mangala, for example. So I don't think he's gone, but he's definitely going to be a name to watch in the All-Star.
It's funny because there was so much talk about that around the deadline, how they didn't do anything. They just pretty much stood pat. They were relying on their young players, and it was a lost season with all the injuries, especially the Judge. I think they give Cashman another year. I feel like maybe they can do something in the offseason to get them back to where they should be. But the thing is, I think they're striking out on a lot of their free agent signings. Like Carlos Rendon hasn't been as good as advertised as he was with the Giants. That's really hurt. And then Garrett Cole's been great, but that's been it. But with Aaron Boone, because I think Cashman stays, but Aaron Boone, I think all the scrutiny is legit. It's great that he vouches for his players all the time, and then he goes and gets ejected a lot. That's great and all, but then it's an overkill sometimes. It's like there's one a week, or there's like one every 2 weeks. It's not unnecessary. I know he's trying to just save his job, but it just seems that he overstayed his time there. They could go only as far as they could as the ALCS a while back. But he's not going to be someone to take you to that next level. So I say they don't bring him back.
All right. And now I have, let's see, 2 right now, and we can maybe add more to the list possibly on Thursday when we kind of continue with our segment. Buck Showalter from the New York Mets. After a season that has been a lot of one of the highest payrolls in baseball, not only missing the postseason, but just having a very underwhelming type season for that type of team. I think he stays. I think that there's more of scrutiny under Boone, I'd say, between the two New York managers. I think Buck actually is not a bad manager. They just had a lot of injury problems. They just had a couple of guys that are very underwhelming in terms of their overall production. Pete Alonso had a very good season power-wise, and he's going to be, but average-wise, very underperforming from Pete. Bullpen-wise, their bullpen, ever since kind of Edwin Diaz got hurt, James, kind of before the season, the Mets really weren't able to overcome that. David Robertson, essentially their best pitcher, who, by the way, has been really bad in Miami in the second half. Crazy enough, maybe the Mets got something out of that, but they just kind of really never put it together. As sometimes they say in sports, money doesn't always talk. It's obviously in terms of the play, and that was kind of the case. But I don't think Buck's leaving anytime soon. I think they really value Buck in that clubhouse. But that was a name that I kind of saw earlier on, I guess, around the deadline. But what do you think?
When I saw these rumors of Showalter getting fired, I thought, no way, because I figure it's not all his fault. A lot of things went wrong this year. It started again, like you mentioned, with Edwin Diaz, and then just poor play, and then just the trade deadline came, and you knew they were going to be selling pretty much everybody. But I think he's a good guy for people for young kids especially to get the knowledge from. He's been around a long time in baseball, so it's really good that they're going to have a guy there that can maybe lead them to their goals, either individually or as a team. I'm going to say Showalter does not get fired. I want to fire everybody, but I think in this case, I really like Showalter. Maybe it's a biased pick, but it does help, like you mentioned, with Boone being more scrutinized than Buck Showalter. It does help. So I say Buck stays.
And then one more manager, and I'm going to save one for at the end of our show, because I'm going to wait for Isaiah to have that one. The last one is Bud Black from the Colorado Rockies. Now, obviously, the Rockies are in more of a rebuild, so it's kind of hard to tell. Do they want to keep him around for a long-term rebuild? He's kind of on the older side specifically, so I don't know specifically if they want to go younger. This is a tough one specifically. The Rockies obviously played a really tough division, so it's kind of really tough that he could be scapegoated out of this. The teams above them, the San Diego Padres heavily underperform. Bob Melvin could be a name. Gabe Kapler could be a name that could be potentially having some. I know, obviously, as I mentioned, Furhan from the front office from the Giants could be obviously moving around in pieces like that. But what do you think of Bud Black? I really don't know specific on this one.
And they just signed him to an extension for, I think, 2 or 3 more years. Okay. I don't think they're going to move or part ways with him just basically based on that, and just based on, there's no damn expectations with the Rockies right now. Exactly. Their farm system is awful. They went out and got Chris Bryant for no damn reason. Awful. Maybe they're waiting to trade him in the offseason. I don't know the thinking on that. Remember, they, traded Arenado basically for nothing and paid the Cardinals for it. They have all those prospects that they got from the Cardinals that turned out to be nothing. So it's more on the front office than it is on Bud Black. I would hope that he's not a scapegoat. I know they're 57 and 100 right now. They split a doubleheader with LA in Colorado today, but I hope they don't. I'm going to say no. I hope Bud Black stays there for the whole contract, honestly.
All right. So that will conclude right now for our baseball recap. We obviously got through a lot of fun postseason stuff we're going to talk more about on Thursday. So obviously keep track on that. But we'll now go to football. As well as week 3 is officially came to a close. I'm going to get through the final scores through a bunch of these games, and then we're going to get to your team reports. And then we're going to get to the winner team of the week of week 3 and the loser team of the week for week 3. So obviously we'll go through each of our teams in terms of the final scores. My Patriots won by the final of 15-10. Absolutely ugly, but a win's a win. Finally on the book. We'll talk about that game because my goodness was Zach Wilson. Oh my goodness. Isaiah, your team, the 49ers, go to 3-0 after defeating the New York Giants 30-12 on Thursday Night Football. And then James's Raiders fell 23-18 on Sunday Night Football to the Pittsburgh Steelers. The Raiders now go to 1-2. The Steelers go now to 2-1. The other final scores we had were the Browns defeated the Titans 27-3, almost 28-3, and I would have made a great joke for the Titan fans out there. The Lions defeated the Falcons 20-6. The Packers just edged the Saints 18-17. Derek Carr left that game early with the AC joint, which apparently could be a lot worse than it was previously. The Dolphins won by a lot over the Broncos. I'll just say that. They scored 70 points. Yes, no, this is not a typo. The Chargers tried to charge against the Vikings, but the Vikings vikinged out a little bit more. Stephen Wayne. It was the battle of who wanted to choke more, but the Vikings are now 0-3. So obviously remember last year, Isaiah, we realized like the Vikings were going to do this and they were winning by these like lucky field goal endings of like it was bound to happen. 28-24 the final of the charge of the Vikings. The Bills absolutely robbed the Commanders 37-3. The Texans defeated the Jaguars 37-17. The Colts in overtime over the Ravens, really good game, low key. Without Anthony Richardson, Gardner Minshew led the way 22-19 in overtime. The Seahawks won 37-27. Andy Dalton actually didn't play that bad. The Chiefs with the Taylor Swifts and all that crap. Travis Kelce, Taylor Swift was there. The Swifty Chiefs, I guess you could say now, won over the Bears 41-10. The Cardinals beat the Cowboys. How about them Cowboys? The Cardinals won their first game 28-16. And then 23-18 was the Steelers over the Raiders. And then Monday Night Football, the Eagles 1-3-0. They won 25-11 over the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. And then Joe Burrow and the Bengals just edged out the Rams 19-16. So those were obviously all the final scores from week 3. I'll go to our team reports now. So I will go to – who wants to start? I guess I'll go to Isaiah. Obviously, Isaiah, your 49ers won by the final 30-12. I didn't actually get the chance to talk about this game with you guys because I think you guys talked about this last week when I was gone. But just overall, your reaction to this game. Listen, Isaiah, the Niners just keep on rolling. They're scoring a lot of points. Their defense is just disrupting plays. And you look up what they have the next couple weeks here. They got the Arizona Cardinals, which, by the way, could be low-key. Do not take them lightly. I'm going to say that right now with the Cardinals. Their first 3 weeks, they feel like they're, here we go. They're Cardinals. They've been close in all these games. It's been good for them. Good for them. And then you guys have Dallas on Sunday Night Football, which is going to be an absolute awesome game to watch. And then you have the Nick Chubb-less Browns in a couple weeks here before the Vikings on Monday Night Football. So your overall reactions to that game, Isaiah, like I said, great win. I just realized this, Isaiah, going through your schedule, you guys have won all the games with a score of 30 points. So, I mean, you guys are just cruising right now.
Yeah, you mentioned it, Ben. The Niners are absolutely cruising right now. My biggest takeaway from that game, and I think I said this on the show with James last week, is I seriously think the Niners can go 17-0. I know that sounds crazy. That sounds absolutely ludicrous. I had a buddy of mine who mentioned that, like, after the Niners beat Pittsburgh 30-7, and I was like, dude, you're crazy as heck. But now that I look at it, right, when you look at it, teams that go undefeated or teams that end up winning the Super Bowl or they have this special type of year, special stuff always has to happen, and things just have to line up for that to happen, but when you look at the Niners schedule, right, before when I first looked at the schedule when it first came out, it looked super, super daunting. But now when I look at this schedule, the Niners are sitting here at 3-0. They play Arizona, which you mentioned, Ben. That's a game that the Niners got to take seriously because when you first looked at the schedule, you were like, oh, they're going to be awful. But Arizona has low-key been really tough this season. I mean, you can argue that they should honestly be 3-0 right now because they had that game against the Commanders and then they choked it late. They had that game against the Giants. They were up 28-7, for goodness sake, I believe at halftime or something, and then they lost that game. So Arizona's not your typical 1-2 team. They have played really tough right now. Shout out to their head coach Jonathan Gannon and his coaching staff for getting them fighting hard and playing hard every single week. But you look at that schedule. I mean, they have the Cardinals at home this week. Dallas just lost Trevon Diggs. If Trevon Diggs was there, I think it would be an even scarier matchup. But the Cowboys got exposed last week against the Cardinals. Their defense, which has been great all season long, gave up 180 yards rushing to Arizona and James Conner. Their pass defense wasn't so much better. There was a lot of busted coverages in that game. And then what really got exposed was their offense. I mean, Dak Prescott looked like a shell of himself in that game. They went to the red zone, I believe, 4 times, and they only came up with 10 points in those 4 trips to the red zone. That's not good. And plus, that game is in San Francisco as well. And then you look at the other games, the Browns, Nick Chubb is out, hopefully wishing him a speedy recovery. The Vikings, that game is in Minnesota. But will Kirk Cousins be there? And what will the Vikings record be at that time? Because if you look at the Vikings schedule, there's a very good chance that Minnesota, if they don't win this week against the Carolina Panthers, the Minnesota Vikings can honestly start the season 0-7. And by the time that game comes up, it's going to be late October. Kirk Cousins could be dealt, especially if the Jets are really that desperate to try to get him. And then the Bengals, who knows how healthy Joe Burrow will be at that time. The Jaguars, after that, they've looked super inconsistent. The Buccaneers have looked super inconsistent. Seattle's been inconsistent. The one game on my schedule that I am kind of worried about is Philadelphia, because that is in Philadelphia. The Eagles have looked decent. I wouldn't say they have looked the best. They have looked decent. But again, it just seems like that everything that needs to go the Niners' favor, and that's falling down for the Niners to make this run, it's just happening. Like every single week, you just see some guy get hurt that is a big-time contributor on a team the Niners are going to play, or that team that they're going to play just doesn't look that great. So I honestly think with the Niners right now, I think that they're the best team right now in the NFL, both offensively and defensively. They're playing really good football. The defense, if I'm not mistaken, has not given up 100-yard rusher through the first 3 weeks of the season, and that's very dominant. But yeah, offense, defense, special teams, they're all playing very good football, scoring 30 points a game. And listen, if you score 30 points a game in the NFL, regardless of who you have as your defense, maybe besides Denver, you will most likely always win that football game. So it was a great win by the Niners. Purdy played well. He was getting blitzed a lot. He was getting hit a lot, and he stood confident in the pocket and delivered some big-time darts down the middle of the field. Ayuk's going to be back this week, I believe. He looks like he's going to be healthy. Deebo Samuel is the only one that I'm kind of worried about because he got hit in the ribs and he did not look great afterwards. But Kittle was great. He had 7 catches for 90 yards. He looks like he's coming on strong. McCaffrey, he looks amazing. 18 carries, 85 yards, and a touchdown. Elijah Mitchell looked better in spelling Christian McCaffrey. Ben and James, the only thing that I'm kind of worried about, though, with the Niners is the right side of that offensive line. The right tackle, McKivitz, he's always getting beat. The Niners need to shore up that line because if they don't, I could seriously see Purdy getting hurt with how much hits that he's taken. So they got to go get someone, whether it's Collins, who got released by the Bengals, or someone via trade from maybe – a team that's not winning, maybe like a Christian Darrisaw in Minnesota, or I'm trying to think of some right tackles that could help, but maybe Garrett Bowles from Denver. That could also be a good one. But the Niners definitely need to upgrade that right tackle position because the left side of the line is fine. It's just that the right side is just consistently getting beat.
All right. We'll go to you, James, with your Raiders. Sunday Night Football. The Raiders lost by the final score of 23-18. Jimmy Garoppolo on the night had 2 touchdowns, but 3 interceptions. So obviously, he threw for 324 yards, but the Steelers kind of were forcing a lot of the Raiders to throw the ball around. Devontae Adams, thank you for the fantasy points. He had an absolute monster day. 20 targets, 13 catches, 172 yards, 2 touchdowns. Jacoby Myers came back, and Jacoby Myers did Kobe things. I'm really jealous of you guys having him because Juju Smith-Schuster right now has just been not it. But Jacoby had 12 targets, 7 receptions for 85 yards. Thing so far, James, is Josh Jacobs. Only 3.6 yards average per rush. I don't really know specifically if his mind's right now in it. For that team right now, he's only averaged the first 3 games, and he was phenomenal last year. He had 12 touchdowns last year. He hasn't had a touchdown yet in the first 3 weeks. The running game obviously needs to be able to balance with that passing game because Jimmy Garoppolo can't be relied on to just throw like he did tonight on Sunday, 44 times. I mean, especially with that rush for the Steelers, that offensive line, James, it's kind of like our offensive line for the Patriots. It's a mess. I mean, I saw that Steelers front is really good, but the Steelers really are coming at it. Kenny Pickett had a really good game, 16 to 28 with 2 touchdowns, one to Calvin Austin, the third, and then Pat Freiermuth. But it was a good game. The biggest thing about it, James, was Josh McDaniels. He was essentially showing his true colors, and I texted this to Isaiah after the game on Sunday in terms of, did you see essentially what happened was the Raiders were driving down. I think it was about 2 minutes and 10 seconds left. They were down by 8, I believe. Mm-hmm. And the Raiders decided I think they had 1 timeout, something like that. And instead of going for, they were about to kick a field goal. And everyone's like, why are you kicking a field goal? You're down 8. It's 4th down. You need to get a touchdown and a 2-point conversion to tie this game. And you can't make this up. The Steelers essentially had a penalty. So essentially the Raiders could make a decision. Okay, we could review this and be like, we can even change to going for it now instead of the Raiders going for the field goal. But no, Josh McDaniels decided to kick another field goal. You're down by 8 points. What are you doing? And then you're essentially banking on your defense, which has been absolutely just getting torched all night, to make a stop and then try to get the ball back with under a minute left. It just made no sense specifically in game. And obviously, Isaiah was talking about guys in college football, like guys like Marcus Freeman, all these guys, which I totally understand about. Josh McDaniels, he showed his true colors in terms of coaching. I just don't know specifically with Josh McDaniels and that Raiders team, James, if Josh McDaniels can make it out through the rest of the season in terms of can he be trusted throughout the rest of it, because that game, Sunday Night Football, everyone was watching, and then the Twitter stuff just blew up. I was even thinking to myself, and I love Josh. I've loved him for everything he's done in New England. I'm thinking to myself, though, is he a coach? Is he the right head coach to be, for a team, especially with the Raiders, who are a team that they're trying to get on track to where they want to be. So it was a good game. Obviously, the Raiders came up a little bit short. The Raiders next week have
Chargers.
They have, yes.
Chargers in LA.
They have the Chargers in LA. So that should be very fascinating. But I'll ask you about the week 3 game, James. How do you feel?
Yeah, it seems like you explained it all. That was the first time any coach or any team went for a damn field goal down 8 in that territory with that much time left. It just, some of those decisions just on and off the field just don't make sense with Josh McDaniels. It doesn't seem like, into what you said, it just doesn't seem like he can be a head coach anywhere and be trusted, even for one season, let alone multiple seasons. Remember, in Denver, he lasted, 2, I guess, but this is his second year. But the Raiders are, I guess, cash-strapped in a way where they can't fire him.
Trade him to the Angels, James. Come on. Trade him to the Angels to replace Nevin.
Oh, my God. The crazy part about all this is, like, Chandler Jones and then where he is mentally. He was sent to a hospital Monday night. he might be going through some really bad mental stuff. I don't know, but I don't think they're missing him as much because he has like 2 good games a year, and that's about it, Chandler Jones. But even to be there,
Patriots, but obviously he's lost a step.
Right. He's not as good, definitely, as he used to be. Speaking of that, man, the Raider defense made the Pittsburgh offense look like the 70s offense, where they had Bradshaw and Lynn Swann and Franco Harris and John Stallworth. You know, they had everything going for them offensively. Like every big play, every first down, they let Najee Harris get forward, which he doesn't usually do that. Najee Harris, this dude, like, he takes after Le'Veon Bell, but he doesn't find the hole. Mm-hmm. He goes back and forth, and then he just ends up being clobbered. But that's a Stiller problem. But he ran, though, really well against the Raiders. So the Raiders did an awful job. They only sacked Pickett one time. Crosby got to Pickett, but they let Pickett look good, which that didn't happen against the Browns, and that didn't happen against, of course, the Niners on week 1. But leave it to the Raiders to let the other team's offense do well. So that was really bad to see. I mean, the corners got beat. The linebackers weren't fast enough. You know, I know Raider fans are complaining about Crosby being held, but it just doesn't matter when the other part of the line and then the middle line can't do anything. So that was really bad. And then they just try to come back, you know, offensively. But Jimmy G, his interceptions especially, they just looked like they were just lobbed up there ready to be caught. With his, especially there was 2 of them that looked really bad, where there was, you know, not as bad as Dak Prescott's, you know, against Arizona, but just out in the open there, you just knew it was going to be picked. And then I think one was a tip pick, but there were 2 really bad picks. They went to Adams early and often, which was fine, but you know, they didn't get Mayer involved, the 2 tight ends involved. They didn't get Renfro involved all that much. DeAndre Carter didn't do much. I wondered if they should have kept the receiver that went on to the Broncos. I forget his name, but yeah. So mm-hmm. I thought, man, they should keep, because he was doing really well in the preseason.
And he was a former Patriot, so he was part of Patriot West.
Yeah, that should have been a sign to keep him, exactly. knowing that, well, Renfro's not the same, and then who are you going to trust after that? So I think the Raiders screwed up in that case. It would have been nice to have another possible threat out there, but, man, just a lot of things went bad in this game. Again, a lot of it goes to coaching. Then a lot of it goes to confidence. A lot of it goes to, I mean, Swagger can do something with Marcus Peters. He did okay. He did have some tackles and some good breakups, but he did allow some big gains. But the same problems consist throughout all the years. Their defense is bad for so many years. They give up big plays. They give up timing plays. Like you mentioned, when they got that field goal and then they were trying to stop the Steelers from getting first down, they allowed a first down, but they didn't allow another, but they only gave the Raiders, 12 seconds to do something all the way back at their own, 10.
Made no sense.
So you knew that was impossible. And then the pick happened at the end of the game, and then so it's more of the same with the Raiders. I really hate the direction where it just seems like they'll never get better. It has to be a whole culture change, and they thought they were getting that with Patriots West, and just so far it doesn't seem like it. I mean, they got lucky in Denver, but you know, a real team in Buffalo killed them. They made the Steelers look good. And I'm freaked out of how many points the Chargers are going to score against the Raiders next week.
Another thing, too, to maybe alarm you, James, is Devontae Adams had some
about
the direction of the team in terms of I ain't waiting. So obviously, that's pretty much a sign in terms of you guys better get your act together or I am out.
Yeah,
So,
I think maybe I know I was saying this to Isaiah, but I was like, low key, look out for a trade with Devontae Adams before the deadline. If it gets really bad, if they don't win another game and that day comes up or that week comes up, it's a real strong possibility, and you're not going to get much back for him because of that contract. So just think about that. For all those people that bought all those Devontae Adams jerseys, not me, because I can't fit one. So, it's going to be – it'll be really bad if Jimmy G's bound to get hurt, probably next week. And then Jacobs holding out, I think, really hurt him, whether he was practicing by himself or on his own. Remember, he was with Crosby, I think, in the parking lot on the deadline at the training facility, thinking a deal was going to get done. I'm going to go in training camp. There's going to be no problems. They're going to pay me, and the Raiders didn't budge. I think that held him back so much. Remember, he had -2 yards against the Bills and 8 carries. And so far, he's just not doing anything. He is a shell of himself. His free agency stock will probably go really, really down wherever he goes. And I hope the Raiders don't bring him back stupidly, but we'll see.
Now, Isaiah, do you have any comments specifically about the game for James's Raiders against the Steelers? I mentioned to you, and you texted me specifically off the air about in terms of you get the chance to see the Josh McDaniels stuff, but did you get the chance to see it after the fact?
I didn't really get to see it in real time because I was passed out.
You didn't miss much, but it was awful.
Yeah, heck, I was at a bar with a couple friends, and I nearly passed out in the bar. That's how tired I was. I got up at 3 a.m. that day for work. But what's it called? So the Raiders and Steelers game, I didn't watch it until the very next day, and Josh McDaniels, number one, better be glad that I didn't add him to the list of coaches that I ripped over this weekend, because I ripped a whole bunch of coaches, it seemed like, over this weekend. But that was terrible, man. Like, I don't understand what he was doing. You're down 8 at that time. I believe the Raiders had the ball at the 8-yard line or the 10-yard line, somewhere like that. They needed 4 yards, and even if you don't get it, the other team, the Pittsburgh Steelers, is backed up. You still got timeouts left, plus you get the 2-minute warning.
Yeah, 2 timeouts and the 2-minute warning.
Yeah,
now that I think about it,
timeouts and the 2-minute warning. If you don't get the conversion there, you don't even need a touchdown. You just get the conversion there, then it'll be first and goal. If you don't get it, the team is back. The Steelers are backed up. You just need to stop. Just stop them. You'll get the football back probably with about, I would say, like a minute, 40-something seconds left, and in most likely good field position. Like, it just makes no sense. Like, you cannot defend Josh McDaniels for that decision. Like, any way, shape, or form you try to analyze it, like, what was Josh thinking? What was Josh thinking kicking that field goal? It just doesn't make any sense. Like, I understand it if, let's say, if you were at maybe like the 30 or the 40-yard line, right? And you don't want to give that team field position at the 35 or the 40-yard line. I get that. But you're at the Pittsburgh, I believe it was Pittsburgh 10-yard line in that situation, and you decide to kick a field goal in that situation. Like, you cannot defend that. That is one of the most that is just an awful decision by Josh McDaniels in that situation. You just cannot do that in that situation.
All right. And just looking at the Raiders schedule, James, before the trade deadline, they got the Chargers, the Packers, my Patriots, at the Bears, and then at the Lions. So we'll see specifically in terms of by then. And we're going to talk a little bit about this after my team report game, and then we'll get to the losers and winners of the weeks. Let's see. The Patriots really needed this one, but it was ugly at best. 15-10. They had chances. It was a really rainy game in the Meadowlands. I guess you could say it's not my life, but the Patriots the first time I thought Mac didn't play bad. He got a touchdown to our third string tight end, Pharaoh Brown, who might have been our star of the game, possibly at least offensively. But Mac went 15-29, 201 with a touchdown, no interceptions. So it was the first week of Mac didn't throw a pick, which was massive. The Patriots did not turn the ball over. The first 2 weeks, they lost the turnover battle. They took the L. They won the turnover battle this past week. I know it was against the Jets, but they won. So, like I said, obviously, when I tell Laura this all the time to the turnover battle, it usually will happen in terms of your favor. But receiving wise, the Jets defense is really, really good. It's really good. It's really good as advertised. Ezekiel Elliott had a really good game. Ramondre Stevenson had a pretty slow start to the season. I don't know why specifically that's the case. But Zeke played really well. He had 16 rushes for 80 yards, 5 yards a rush. If you can get that out of Zeke at least a little bit, that's decent. Hunter Henry, Gesicki were pretty quiet in this one. Henry only had 2 catches. Gesicki only had 1. Parker only had 2. Kendrick Bourne had 4. Juju Smith-Schuster has been an absolute disappointment. I don't know specifically in terms of what's going on with him. They've been kind of saying that him and Mac have kind of thrown off the field, doing some stuff there, but only 1 catch for 3 targets. He just doesn't seem like he has that burst anymore. And that's just really concerning because, the Patriots don't have its true tight end, true receiver. And I know as Isaiah said off the air, we'll talk about this a little bit later, but I wish it would happen. But the Patriots really kind of need to figure out in the next couple of weeks, they need to figure out if there might be a number one wide receiver available. Because I think the defense has been absolutely spectacular. Yes, I know we're going to talk about Zach Wilson just a little bit here, because that is. Hey, James, if you want to talk about your Raiders having bad quarterback play, you can go and watch the Jets quarterback play. Because my goodness, that might take the ice. That might take the cake. It might look like the Raiders quarterback play look like an all-star team. Because I know our defense is good, but man, oh man. But just the fact that the Patriots let the Jets pretty much kind of hand around that second half, and it came down to a Hail Mary with like 5 seconds that literally almost my heart almost gave out of that. It's just not good. They really have to be able to close a lot better. They go to Dallas this weekend. Now, Dallas obviously lost against the Cardinals this past Sunday. If the offensive line can get themselves in gear, if the running game could be a little bit effective, which the running game actually did pretty good for the Cardinals this past week against the Cowboys, without Trayvon Diggs now too. I think the Patriots have a chance. I really do. But the Patriots really have to play clean football. Dak Prescott is just very hit or miss. I mean, the defense so far hasn't had a lot of interceptions yet. I think that for a guy like Dak Prescott, he's bound to throw the interceptions. They have to be able to win the turnover battle massively. Going to Dallas, prime time, on Fox specifically too. So that'll be a massive game. But the Patriots really need this one. And obviously, all the Bill Belichick stuff specifically. If they lost to this Zach Wilson offense, their heads have been spinning already for sure. So it's essentially kind of one where you kind of move on. But I do want to talk about the Jets quarterback play. Obviously, the offseason, Aaron Rodgers, the spotlight. We're talking about playoffs with them. And 4 plays in the season opener, essentially the season was over for the Jets because the Jets don't have any other alternatives. They really don't. They essentially signed Trevor Siemian today. They're really down bad. They didn't even want to go out, look at Matt Ryan. Well, Matt Ryan apparently told them that he doesn't want to play football anymore. Mm-hmm. But Carson Wentz. Apparently Colin Kaepernick, I don't know if you guys got the chance to see it, but apparently he wrote a letter to potentially to the Jets to play in their practice squad. I did see that earlier today. So the Jets are just desperate, man. They really know behind the scenes. I think a lot of the players are doing their best to be supportive of Zach Wilson, but just the antics he has, the Jet fans essentially be booing like crazy. They just had it with him. Remember, there's a second overall pick out of BYU, and there's just been no progress. And I think Robert Saleh, which I saw you also sent me something earlier about Robert Saleh, which I actually got the chance to read, which was very fascinating. that Jets team specifically is literally a quarterback away from where they want to be, and it was going to be Rodgers. It really was going to be Rodgers, but now you're kind of seeing what it was like last year, because it's a mess. It really is. So I'll go to you, Isaiah, because obviously you put that article on there. The Jets are an absolute dumpster fire right now without Rodgers. It's just simple. I'll go to you then, James.
Okay, so I don't know if I
know.
trust this website or whatever that's on there, or not website, the account. But I can remember this as it mentions, tensions are rising in the locker room over the Zach Wilson situation, and they could implode. I can remember this last year. Remember, I think it was, God, I forget what game it was at home, but Zach Wilson wouldn't take accountability to losing in that game in which he performed really bad. This was the time the Jets were, vying for a playoff spot despite the quarterbacks that they had playing for him. But he wouldn't take accountability to the loss that was clearly, 85% of his fault. So it's really, I could definitely see like both ways of how it's going to go, but the fact is he's just not good, and then he's not a good teammate in that sense. Where that goes back to last year. I mean, it's a real mess there with the Jets. Really needed Aaron Rodgers, and then honestly, you feel like you had a good backup plan, but then you only have Wilson there because he knows the system, and that's a problem. If you just have somebody in the system, Justin Fields may go through this. You never know in Chicago, depending on what they want to do. It's a real mess, and if this article is true, I'm not shocked by it, just because of last year for him not taking accountability after a loss in which there was a game that they really needed. Isaiah, I'll end that, but do you remember who that loss was against? And Zach Wilson had that press conference where he said the game wasn't on him.
That was against the Patriots. That was the game where he went like 9 for 20.
That was the game I was at. That's right.
75 yards or something. He didn't throw any interceptions, which was crazy, right? Because when you have a game that bad and a performance that bad, to not throw one single interception, that's crazy.
He was so bad.
He was like 9 for 25 for 75 yards, I think.
I'll tell you this, guys. Just seeing him play, it's hard to watch on the TV, but in person, it's like this guy's never played quarterback before. It's scary. It's scary.
He hesitates a lot. I noticed that.
Because if there essentially was another quarterback that was on the Jets, even a little upgrade, we would have lost that game. It came down to a punt return. Nobody was scoring. It was literally like this past game. But I'll go to you, Isaiah. With Aaron Rodgers essentially being done for the season, and apparently Aaron Rodgers, Pat McAfee asked him today about the Jets season, I guess so far, and he said essentially that I don't know if it's about like they got to grow up or something, but man, I mean, it's just that Broadway essentially is starting to fall down over in Jetland right now, and they are losing their mind. So I'll go to you, Isaiah, because I know where you talked a couple of years ago about Zach Wilson, how high you were about him. Isaiah loses again, I guess you can say on that one, because there's no way you can defend this. This is bad, man. I don't know what to say.
I'll maintain this though. If Zach Wilson was with Sean McVay, or if he was with Kyle Shanahan, or if he was with a great offensive mind, maybe even a Sean Payton, I think it would be different. I think it would be different because he would not have lost his confidence. And plus, he would be with a really good offensive mind that could develop him and scheme, mask his deficiencies, and also really put together a great scheme to help him. But, I don't want to excuse any of his just awfulness out on the field. But honestly, dude, the guy has honestly gotten a bad a bad end of the stick because he's gotten his offensive coordinators there has been Mike LaFleur, who was awful, right? And then he got Nathaniel Hackett, who we saw with the Broncos last year when he actually called plays. I mean, that offense was one of the worst offenses in the NFL. So, I do think he will be a quarterback in the NFL again if the Jets move on from him. I think what he does need, though, is he needs to get out of New York. He needs a change of scenery. He needs to get out of New York. He needs to get out of the bright lights. He needs to get out of, Nathaniel Hackett and Robert Saleh's putrid offense. But honestly, for Zach Wilson and for the Jets, the New York Jets need to call up the Minnesota Vikings right now, and they need to go offer their first-round pick for Kirk Cousins because your season is teetering on the brink. If you don't make a move in the next couple of weeks, your season is dead. It's going to be dead because you're playing the Chiefs this week on Sunday Night Football. We're going to see Zach Wilson Holmes, fellas, on Sunday Night Football. And talking the Jets come 20 points close to even winning this game. That's how bad of a blowout it's going to be. And then after that, they play Denver. They play the Denver Broncos.
Oh, boy.
I'll tell you this. With Zach Wilson and his ineptitude and Nathaniel Hackett's ineptitude, I honestly think that the Broncos are going to win this game. So you're potentially looking at the Jets they're 1-2 right now. You're potentially looking at the Jets going 1-4 to start the season. And if you think things are bad right now, wait till they start 1-4. And then after they start 1-4, if they do start 1-4, play the Philadelphia Eagles, then they play the New York Giants, then they play the Chargers, then the Raiders, and then they play the Raiders, and then they play the Buffalo Bills.
Yikes.
The New York Jets are teetering on the brink of absolute disaster, and they got to make a move. They have to make a move. During that Patriots-Jets game, Ben, I was Googling during the game. I was like, who's the Jets' backup quarterback? Because they should play him because Tim Boyle, yeah, he probably could do no worse than what Zach Wilson has done for the New York Jets. And honestly, that game, Ben, that game between the Jets and the Patriots, if the Jets had just a competent quarterback, you don't even have to have a great quarterback. If you have a competent quarterback, that game, I think the Jets would have won that game because both teams last year, both teams weren't scoring. It was just defense. The Patriots took a 13-3 lead at halftime, and they only scored 2 points. Just 2 points the rest of the way, and they got outscored by the Jets, I believe, 10-2 in the second half. It was just a disgraceful performance offensively by the Jets. The New York Jets, they gotta make a move. I don't know what what they're gonna do. Maybe go get a Kirk Cousins. Maybe put in Trevor Siemian if it doesn't work out this week. I don't know what you do, to be honest. Go get Kirk Cousins. Go get I'm trying to think of other quarterback options. Maybe, you know what? This is probably going to be the crazy situation. Go call Colin Kaepernick because, at this point, he's probably better than Zach Wilson after not having played for 6 years. So the Jets, they gotta make a move at quarterback right now, and you cannot wait any further because if you do, your season is going to be over. Robert Saleh will be fired by midseason if this continues because right now you already see it. They're already fighting on the sidelines. They're fighting in the locker room. There's messy press leaks coming out to the press. It's just really, really bad right now in New York, and it's going to get worse every time they continue to lose.
All right, let's now get to our Week 3 winners and losers of the weekend. So this is essentially my winners and losers are essentially in the same game that they played each other in. So this makes it fun and easy. So if I go first and there are two of the teams, James or Isaiah, that you mentioned, I will change my picks. But this is pretty I think I missed the Week 2 last week, but Week 1 I had the Niners. And then the loser I forgot I had. But my winner for Week 3 is the Dolphins. They scored 70 points. They're just absolute track me right now. And by the way, they didn't have Jalen Waddle on Sunday.
Mm-hmm.
They had Raheem Mostert, who had 45 points for me in one of my fantasy leagues. They had this other kid who I had no idea about that just went and balled out. Tyreek Hill, like the first play of the game, I think got a touchdown, or the second play. Tua literally had a perfect rating at halftime. So they're just insanely hot right now. They're expensive like last year, but I think they're even more scary this year. Mike McDaniel's been an absolute – he's on a clinic right now. It's almost like, you play the game of Madden and you're just like, oh, I'm going to, put the play sheet out and I'm just going to go for it. But they're absolutely rolling. Now, the team that they just played, the Broncos, they're my losers of the week. They just gave up 70 points. And remember, as the Broncos prediction with Sean Payton coming in, they are 0-3, but it's not really on him. It's Vance Joseph, because good God, I don't know who in the right mind decided to bring this guy in as a defensive coordinator, because he is going to be probably the reason, Isaiah, that the Denver Broncos are not going to be making the playoffs. And they might be going more in a rebuild type of thing. And that's why specifically, if I'm the Patriots, I make calls for Jerry Jeudy and Cortland Sutton at the trade deadline if they're available. Because I think specifically right now, maybe even guys like Patrick Surtain, there's going to be some like high-level names at the deadline, because I think that the Broncos are trying to get Caleb Williams. I really do. I think that there's a lot of teams. You look at maybe the Raiders, if they keep going down. The Broncos could be really – imagine Caleb Williams and Sean Payton. A combination of those two, that would be absolutely fantastic. You have the Patrick Mahomes and then essentially the young Patrick Mahomes of college football coming in to play in that division. I think specifically there's something going on there. We'll see specifically. I think somebody told me even at work earlier today that Jerry Jeudy and Russell Wilson have had like on and off type of beef. I don't know about that right now, but that's what my winners and losers of the week is. My winner is the Dolphins, because they've just been red hot. They have the Bills this coming Sunday, which we'll talk about a little bit. That's probably gonna be the game of the week. I don't know why that's not prime time, and it's the Chiefs and Zach Wilson for that. So I don't know, but and then the Broncos are just an absolute mess. They're one of the 0-3 teams that we'll talk about later on. So I'll go to you, James, your winner and loser of the week.
Well, yeah, I don't want to copy you, but that was definitely the winner and loser, definitely.
All right.
No, but I'll go with some more, because when you think about it, Cleveland, after losing Nick Chubb and losing that game in Pittsburgh, they came back and won in a big way. So they're winners in that case. The Colts getting that win because of Matt Gay, the special teams player of the week, with 5 field goals to win that game, pretty much single-handedly. The Cardinals for beating the Cowboys. Just think they've been in every game, and they beat the Cowboys there. The winner, I would definitely say, oh man, I guess give me. And then you gotta look at the Texans. Yeah, you know what? I'm giving it to Houston.
Nice.
They put up 37 on the Jags. What the hell? Like, and they had that game from the start. It was like 14-0 right away. So yeah, credit to CJ Stroud, the defense. DeMarco Ryans getting his first win. So yeah, the winner I'm going for is Houston. I think everybody thought, Jaguars are going to come out and they're going to, get back to their form. But no, the Texans just said, hey, it's a divisional game. We're going to treat it like it is, and we're going to pound them. And that's what they did on the road. And it was hot as hell, too. It was humid as hell in Jacksonville. So, yeah, big winner is Houston, I'm saying. Loser, of course, yeah, I would say Denver. But for me, you know what? I want to say Jacksonville, just because of what that game meant. Was like it was going to be a statement game to come back. You can also say the Cowboys, but you thought with Diggs they would make that game a little interesting. The Bears, with all the stuff that happened throughout the week, I was considering them too, but you knew that they were going to lose anyway.
Yeah.
The Ravens for underplaying, but that was bad weather. They lost key pieces. So So no, for those two for that game, it has to be in that game. I'm gonna go Texans as a winner and Jaguars as a loser as the game went.
And what about you, Isaiah? Who's your week 3 winners and losers of the week?
Let's go with the winners. So to start off with the winners, I got a couple. Number one for the winners, I gotta go. Number one, you know what? I'm gonna go with them. I'm gonna go with the Seahawks, and it's gonna make me sick because the Seahawks played a Panthers team. I know Bryce Young didn't play in that game, but the Carolina Panthers were predicted by many to start this season to win the NFC South. And I know it's in Seattle. I know it was rainy, wet weather. But still, I mean, the Seahawks put up 37 points. They put up a lot of points against that Panthers defense, which was supposed to be great this season. And they did it both on the ground and in the air. Kenneth Walker with 3 rushing touchdowns. Geno Smith, a couple of quick strikes to Tyler Lockett and DK Metcalf. The Seahawks, both offensively and defensively, they had it going in this game. The second team on my list, I got to be a little biased here, James and Ben. Give me the Niners. 30-12.
They played the Giants without Barkley. You're supposed to win that game. It doesn't matter.
Look at these other teams, right? That were supposed to single-handedly crush some of these teams. Like look at the Jags or look at the Chiefs. Yeah, I mean the Chiefs did their thing. The Cowboys, they were supposed to crush the Cardinals. I'm trying to look at some of the other games. The Ravens were supposed to beat the Colts, especially with Anthony Richardson not there. The Niners did their business. They looked good both offensively and defensively, and they took care of their business, and they looked good in this game. And then as far as the losers are concerned, you guys mentioned the Bears. You guys mentioned the Jets. You guys mentioned the Broncos, the Jags as well. I'm very disappointed in the Jags, by the way, because they were definitely my pick to win not only AFC South, but they were my pick to win the AFC and go to the Super Bowl. And they're 1-2 right now, and that does not look that great. But I gotta say, my biggest loser for this week. My biggest loser, honestly, will be the LA Rams. The LA Rams lost a game to the Bengals in which Joe Burrow did not look good. The offense did not look good. And that Rams team, not only should they have won this game, they should have won this game by at least 13 points. I mean, the Bengals were putrid in that first half. It was
Isaiah, wait. I would say if they had Cooper Kupp, then they would be the biggest loser. If he was healthy, I would say that, though.
But it exposed McVay's play calling. I mean, McVay called an awful game.
He was bad
offensively. The offensive line we thought was going to be improved. They were improved the last couple of weeks, but this week not so much. The defense it broke late, and for the Rams, the Rams, sadly, they're sitting here now. They're 1-2. We didn't really expect much from the Los Angeles Rams, but I expected them to beat the Bengals just because with Burrow hurt and with the Bengals offense not looking so good. I thought they were the better team, but it was just very disappointing to see what they put up. And I would say my second biggest loser, and it's probably going to be in agreement with you, Ben, is Vance Joseph. Vance Joseph should have never made it back on the plane from Miami. I mean, this dude honestly should not even have been hired. I mean, you brought in 2 guys. You brought in Rex Ryan and you brought in Vance Joseph to be the defensive coordinator candidates. That's what Sean Payton brought in this offseason. And you picked Vance Joseph, who in his entire career, he hasn't had a defense ranked higher than 26th in the NFL when he's calling the defense. You brought him in over Rex Ryan. It just makes no sense whatsoever. Arizona had the 31st ranked defense in the entire NFL last year. And now with Vance Joseph out of the way and with Jonathan Gannon in there, Arizona's up to 16th. they're 16th with Vance Joseph out and Alex or Zach Kerr out as well, and they've moved up 15 spots just because Vance Joseph is not there. It just shows you that Vance Joseph is inept, he's incompetent, and the Broncos, they should have never hired him, and they should have hired Rex Ryan to begin with. Oh, Ben, I think you're muted.
I was gonna say I would be shocked if Vance Joseph survives there. I really would throughout the remainder of the season. I mean, if that 70 points isn't something that's telling, I don't know what is. So, all right. Now, speaking of the Broncos, they're one of 0-3 winless teams to start the going into week 4 of the NFL season. You got the Broncos, you got the Bears, you got the Panthers, and you got the Vikings. Who out of the list do you think could turn their season around? And my next question is, what teams essentially have to start selling some pieces? Now you obviously can make a list essentially for all 4 of them to start kind of selling, but for me specifically, if I look right here, I think that the Panthers can kind of get their season back and around. Bryce Young is obviously young. I didn't want to get that pun right there, but but he obviously he's a young quarterback that that is going to probably turn things around. That Panthers team, the NFC South, I don't think is going to be up for, nobody's going to run away with it, especially now with the Saints, with Derek Carr's injury. Baker Mayfield, obviously that Buccaneers team kind of fell down a little bit against the Eagles. They seem like they're going to be okay, though, I think, with that defense. But I think the Panthers probably, the Bears are just, Justin Fields is just, I don't know what's going on. He just seems, I was hearing you guys last week on your show. You guys talked about Justin Fields. I just don't think the scheme's there. Dan Orlovsky, who, by the way, I don't know if you guys get the chance to see Dan Orlovsky stuff. If you don't get the chance, if you haven't seen it, watch his tape film stuff. He does great stuff throughout the week. And he talked about, I think on Get Up this week, that the Chicago Bears film was absolutely awful. It was like, pardon my language, dog crap. And apparently it wasn't all on Justin Fields, but just everything there with the Bears, man. They can't even get their locker room right. That's how bad things are going right now with them. So I don't think the Bears are going to turn things around. They're going to probably start selling pieces. The Broncos, they have to start selling pieces specifically. Mm-hmm. The Vikings are very fascinating. I got to see specifically in terms of, Kevin O'Connell's a really good coach. I got to see who else they have coming up. They actually have the Panthers that's coming up Sunday, so some team has to win. And then they have, let's see here. Then they have Kansas City, then they have the Bears, and then they have the Niners, and then the Packers. So pretty much right up to the trade deadline, they essentially have a lot of really good teams that they're facing. So I'll go to you, Isaiah. Out of the 0-3 teams on the 4 teams there, who's the team that could turn that around?
I think we talked about this last week with James and myself. You know what? I'm sticking to my gut, even though this team got blasted last week and it made me look like an absolute fool. Give me Sean Payton and the Denver Broncos, man. I'm going with Denver. I know they just got blasted 70-20. I know it looked horrific down there in South Beach, but Denver their problem is the defense. Their problem is the defense, and that is easier and quicker to fix than it is the offense. And their problem ain't the offense. Their offense can score points. Russell Wilson has looked so much better in Sean Payton's offense than he did in Nathaniel Hackett's offense. He's thrown for 300 yards in back-to-back games. So Denver, I think they can get the offense going. Their offensive line has improved a lot recently. Javonte Williams, my bad, looks like himself again. Cortland Sutton has looked good. He looks much healthier now. So the offense is good. It's the defense. And I think that for Denver, they could get their defense fixed by a couple of things. I think Vance Joseph has to blitz a lot more. than he has the last several games, and definitely coverage-wise, they definitely need to fix the coverage. I would put Surtain, and I don't know why they didn't do this, which it just makes it even more mind-boggling, is why didn't they not put Surtain on, who's one of their better corners, on Tyreek Hill the entire game? Like, why are you letting your number 2 corner and your number 3 corner cover Tyreek Hill? It just doesn't make any sense whatsoever. I think for Denver, I still have faith in Denver. I think Denver can turn their season around. I think that, Denver, they should have Raider game. They should have definitely, they could have won that game. The Commanders game, I would argue they definitely should have won that game. The Dolphins, the Dolphins look like the best team in the NFL right now, besides the Niners and Philly. They won that game 70-20, so I don't really take much stock into that. But you look at the Broncos' upcoming schedule. They have at the Bears, which, someone should win. If the Denver Broncos lose to the Chicago Bears, I would cancel the Broncos season then and there, because if you lose to the Bears,
you won't beat anyone.
Yeah, I hope they don't. But then they play the Jets, and I'm pretty sure Zach Wilson will be playing in that game.
Definitely.
So if you win those 2 games, you're sitting there at 2-3. That's not bad. Like, you're 2-3 in going into against the Chiefs at Arrowhead, who, by the way, I don't know if you guys know this, but the Denver Broncos, whenever they play the Kansas City Chiefs, they play them tough, man. Like, they always play them close. And if you have if that offense can maybe put up more touchdowns than they have against the Chiefs instead of settling field goals, I could see that game going down the wire, and I could see Denver potentially winning that game. And then you play the Packers, and then, the Bills are going to be tough. The Chiefs are going to be tough. But then you play against Minnesota and against Cleveland, who are not that great, and then you play at the Texans. So, I mean, Denver could be in playoff position by the time we start December with their bunch of easy games, and then you have a couple tough games mixed in the middle of it. But Denver's entering a good, easy portion of their schedule, and if in this part of their schedule, if they, in this 9-game stretch, if Denver were to go, if Denver needs at least 6 or 7 wins. If they can do that, then I think that the Broncos, they definitely can turn their season around.
And what about you, James?
James, I think you're muted.
Okay, there I am. What was the question again? I'm sorry.
So who do you, out of the 4 teams that are winless right now? What's the team you think is going to turn around?
The team that could turn it around, God.
The Panthers. Broncos.
I don't think any of them. I really maybe the Vikings, if they can find a way to win games and not blow it at the end and dominate games, but they just have to rely on Jefferson and Cousins and then throw to Addison more and Hawkinson. But Hawkinson was doing bad too. So it's and their defense is really bad, but I think they have more of a shot just because of that division. It's still there. So I think the Vikings have the better shot.
All right, now we're going to make our Thursday night pick. Now we're going to be looking now ahead to Week 4. We are going to predict the rest of Week 4 on Thursday, and Isaiah also mentioned off the air that we are having extra points tomorrow night. So make sure to tune in for that as we recap Week 3 as well, moving on to Week 4. So Thursday night football with Al Michaels and Kirk Herbstreit. We go to Lambeau Field for a very intriguing matchup between the 2-1 Detroit Lions and the 2-1 Green Bay Packers. Right now, I believe the Lions are at -1.5, so it's gonna be close. We'll have to see specifically if Aaron Jones will play. We'll have to see specifically if Christian Watson will play. It's a tough game. Remember, guys, the Lions went into Green Bay last year and they won against the Packers. This year, obviously the Lions are coming off a win against the Falcons. The Packers are coming off trying to remember what happened. Oh yeah, they're coming off the 18-17 win against the Saints. So, oh, man, it's gonna be tough. Give me the Packers. I really like that defense right now. I think Jordan Love is playing really good football. Christian Watson and Aaron Jones, I think, are going to assume they're going to play. I really love the Lions, man. I really love this team this year, but I think that the Packers are going to win. It's a short week. It's in Lambeau. I'm going to go with the Packers here. It's like a 2017 type of game. It's going to be really close. What do you think, James? Who are you going to pick there?
Man, if Jones and Christian Watson both return, maybe give the slight edge to Green Bay. I never like these Thursday night games, especially for a young team like the Packers are and a young quarterback like Jordan Love is. I hate that for him. I don't think it'd be too cold yet for the Lions. I know they play a lot of their games in Dome Stadium or Roof Stadium, but man, the Lions, they barely escaped last week against the Falcons. It seemed like. I know it was 20-9, but they're not doing enough. It seems like they're missing something, and Jameson Williams is that. But the Packers, you would think, if their defense plays a little better, maybe the Packers have a shot. I'm torn between these two because I got to see the injuries or whatever, who will be playing or not. For now, I'll go with Green Bay.
And what about you, Isaiah?
I think this is going to be a really good game. I think it's going to be back and forth, and I honestly think this game will probably be one of the best Thursday night games that we've seen, and it's going to come down to the wire. Having said that, give me Green Bay. I think I'm going to agree with you guys. Jordan Love is playing really good football right now. The Packers haven't missed a beat ever since they traded away Aaron Rodgers. And remember, they're doing all of this without Aaron Jones and without Christian Watson, who is their number one receiver. So what they're doing is very, very impressive stuff. The defense that you mentioned, Ben, they have played very good football. I think it's going to come down to one or two of the final drives. And I think Green Bay is going to just stuff Detroit. The problem with Detroit is they can't play from behind, because if they play from behind, then they always panic, and they can't. They're without the running game, and you have to rely on Jared Goff to throw the football 30, 40 times a game. That's just not going to happen, and it's not a good recipe to be successful. So give me Green Bay. I think Green Bay, it's going to be a back and forth game, but I think Green Bay gets a couple of stops down the stretch to ultimately win this game.
All right, and obviously we're not going to pick our Week 4 picks until Thursday, but we will, I guess, kind of look at some games this weekend. Obviously, the Patriots-Cowboys, my team, in terms of our teams. James, you guys are playing the Chargers this weekend. And Isaiah, you guys are playing the Cardinals this weekend. So we always could talk more about our team reports for those games on Thursday. But what are some games at least you guys are taking a look at really quick before we get into some college football stuff? For me, obviously, it's Dolphins-Bills. That should really be the primetime game. Bengals-Titans. I'm really curious to see specifically how Joe Burrow responds, really. Obviously, the defense kind of really held its own, but I think that's a really fascinating one. Rams and Colts. I feel like the Colts, the offense with Gardner Minshew actually hasn't been that bad. The Rams, obviously, without Cooper Kupp. I feel like that game could be close. Bucks Saints. Obviously, Jameis Winston against Baker. So that's going to be without Derek Carr. Commanders Eagles. NFC East. That's obviously a game that I feel like the Commanders are going to respond with. And the Eagles haven't lost yet, so we'll see about that one. Vikings, we want to talk about the Suckfest games. We have the Broncos and the Bears. That game, I don't know if you guys want to put it on Nickelodeon, but I'll try to make sure I can put that game on because that's a Nickelodeon game, if anything. Let's see. Chiefs and Jets is just going to be a Sunday night snooze fest. Raiders, Chargers, James. Obviously, there's a lot of division games this weekend. So obviously that's good to see. But I don't know. That's a really fascinating week. Ravens Browns. I like that matchup a lot. Browns defense has been really good this year. Browns actually played pretty well last week with Jerome Ford in the absence of Nick Chubb. So I'll ask one of you guys your favorite matchup to watch this week. Obviously, it can be. I mean, Isaiah, you can put your Niners if you want to. Obviously, just another game. But what are you guys' favorite matchups leading up to Sunday? I'll go to James first.
Okay, Dolphins Bills, no doubt. That's the
Oh, of
only
course.
game I'm going to be really, really watching, other from the Raiders and the Chargers. You know, Thursday night, of course. I don't think I'm going to wake up early for Falcons Jaguars. Nah.
Mhm.
After that, you don't really have much. Steelers Texans. I just want to see if whatever success the Texans had against the Jags defense can apply to the going against the Steelers defense, but I doubt that. But I'll be checking in with that game as well. That's really it. I don't want to see anything else, honestly. I'm not interested in the Monday night game, the Sunday night game. I'll tell you what. Maybe the Eagles game to see if the Commanders can bounce back. If you remember last year, Monday Night Football, the Commanders went to Philadelphia and upset them and gave them their first loss. So I want to see if Philadelphia on Sunday afternoon or afternoon over there gets back at them. I really want to see if there's a revenge factor. It's a divisional game. You just never know. I think just for blooper's sake, I want to see Broncos and Bears and just see all the lowlights of that game. That would be something to see. How Joe Burrow does against a tight end defense on the road. If the Vikings can, the pair of 0-3 teams going at it, if the Vikings can beat the backup quarterback of the Panthers, that would be
Andy Dalton.
Good. Oh God, Andy Dalton. Yeah,
played pretty well actually against Seattle.
Yeah. So a lot of pressure is on the Vikings. I know that. I want to see if the Browns can continue what they want to do against the Ravens as well. I want to see the Browns and this will be the first game with Kareem Hunt. I want to see how he's going to do against that Raven defense. So there's intriguing games, but there's only like 4 I want to actually pay attention to.
All right, Isaiah, I'll go to you. Any games that you're interested in? It's kind of a very up and down slate, but there is a lot of division games.
Yeah, for me, to James's point, sadly, I might honestly be watching more baseball than I will football coming Sunday because it's the end of the season, last day of the season, so there'll be a lot of intrigue for sure. But in terms of the NFL games, believe it or not, guys, Broncos and Bears, I'm looking forward to that game because Denver is in a spot right now where they have 2 easy games the next few weeks or the next couple of weeks back to back. And if they're going to turn their season around, then now is the time to turn your season around. And Justin Fields and the Bears offense has struggled a lot recently, maybe going up against Vance Joseph's defense, who allowed 35 points to Sam Howell and the Commanders last week, and then 70 points to the Miami Dolphins. Maybe that's the cure they need to turn his career around. I don't know. But I think Justin Fields, let me say this. If the Broncos lose this game, I'm officially going to cancel the Broncos season. If the Broncos defense gives up 30-plus points, which I'm scared to believe it or not, I think they could give up like 30 points to Justin Fields because that's how bad Vance Joseph is. Like, I think that they could honestly do that. But that's a game that I'm looking forward to. I think it could be a back and forth type of a battle between these two teams. And, whoever wins, their season has a glimmer of hope. If they lose, their season is dead. So I'm looking forward to that game. The other games that I'm looking forward to is, I would probably say, Buccaneers and Saints. You have Baker Mayfield versus Baker Mayfield versus James Winston. Division games, like you mentioned, Ben. Both of these two teams, they always play each other tough. Very close. Dolphins and Bills. That's going to be one. Raiders and Chargers, because I think that could be an offensive shootout between these two teams. The Raiders and the Chargers, they always seem to play each other tough and always very close. And I would probably say the last game that I'm looking forward to is, I think this is going to be a close game,
Let's go back to him later.
Yeah. But if we get Isaiah back, we obviously will let him finish. But James, we'll go to you for college football as we're gonna quickly recap, kind of our show really quick, and obviously we got to go, which we're gonna try to finish up the program fairly shortly. Now your Trojans are 4-0. They just went and played last week against Arizona State. It was a pretty close game for the most part.
Yeah, I didn't like that.
And I really didn't get to see the finish of it. But now, James, the fun on Saturday, you got Caleb against Shadir Sanders. Pretty much the game that I think everybody wants to watch. Obviously, Colorado got blown out against Oregon, so they're really hungry to respond. So that's going to be on Saturday at 12 on Fox. James, just want to quickly recap your game on Saturday and then any type of thoughts going into this big matchup on Saturday.
Yeah, I didn't like that game against Arizona State. The defense let a lot of big plays happen and made that game really close. Fortunately, USC did win, though, 42-28. In the second half, they really played better. I think they had a good talking to and made some adjustments. So they were able to hold on and win. It was a late night game for once. And then you have the extreme change of a morning game in Colorado at 10 a.m. I don't know why. It's that big noon Saturday crap. But yeah, 9 a.m. here, 10 there. They're going to play in Colorado. These kids don't get up that early unless they go to class. But that's what I'm freaked out about is the time of the game. I know they're trying to get the East Coast, exposure, but that's going to be weird. What's unfortunate, Travis Hunter won't be available to play for Colorado, so that's going to really suck. I want to play somebody when you're, fully healthy, when everybody's ready to go. Because the excuse would be, hey, for Colorado, well, we don't have one of our best players. So that's unfortunate, and that's going to be a big loss, I think, for Colorado. I think the Trojans will win. Of course, it won't be that easy. Well, I do like what the Trojans and Colorado have done. They haven't, traded insults or given people, bulletin board material. It's just been, admiration for each other's quarterback. You know what I mean? And that's all you want is that, because you don't want to fire up a Deion Sanders coach team to the point where they're upset you, especially at Colorado. So I'm looking forward to that game. Luckily, it's in the morning because I got to go to that stupid Angel game at night. So there's no troubles there where I can't be two places at once. So at least there's no bulletin board material yet between these two teams. That's going to be a big thing. I'm just hoping any big plays can be shut down by the USC defense. The secondary got exposed. Hopefully we can get after Shadir Sanders and make his life, at least for that game, living hell. That's all I would want. But our defense secondary has to step up. That's the only way to do it. I think USC wins, but it's going to be a really, I would think, a very entertaining game. You might have right away some surprises, some turnovers by USC, the home crowd getting active and loud. And then finally, I think USC will settle in and win the game and end up winning. That's what I hope out of that game. Then looking at the schedule, the rest of the college schedule, I don't really see anything that really stands out for the schedule. It's Georgia and Auburn, but Auburn, Michigan, Nebraska. Nebraska's nothing at all.
Oof.
You got Louisville and Ole Miss. Oregon's playing Stafford. That's a blowout. Notre Dame's at Duke. Maybe that'll be.
That'll be interesting.
That'll be something. Maybe Duke, as a 17th ranked team, will surprise some people.
Leonard's been great. Yeah.
Of course, I hope for that. I never want to see Notre Dame win. And shout out to your Buckeyes for coming out of South Bend with that win. That was so damn amazing. I couldn't believe.
I was so happy.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's all. That's what I wanted to see, and it looks like they have this week off too, so that's really good. Maybe another Pac-12 game is number 10 Utah at number 19 Oregon State, but I imagine Utah wins on the road just like SC will. But guys, that's all I got. I gotta get off of here and get to work early in the morning. But thank you for having me on, Ben. Isaiah, you know what it is. I'll see y'all on Thursday. Everyone take care, and we'll see what happens. Later, folks.
All right. Take care, Jim. Thanks for coming on. Now to you, Isaiah. Obviously, did you want to finish off? I know obviously you lost a little bit of signal with the NFL stuff. Do you happen to remember kind of what you were finishing up with?
No, I actually didn't realize that I even got booted until I got booted off that my internet was going bad. But yeah, I probably would say like Broncos, Bears. I think the other games were the Dolphins and Bills, the Bucks and Saints, because these divisional games are always very close and tight. Raiders and Chargers, because that's another game that's always going to be very close, and it's always a shootout when those two teams play. And Ben, believe it or not, I don't know if you guys heard this before my internet cut off. I'm actually looking for a Chiefs at Jets, honestly, because it's prime time at the Meadowlands in New York. It's going to be not so great weather. The Chiefs tend to struggle when it's always not great weather. So I think that game could be a lot closer than a lot of people think. And that Chiefs defense, it's been solid this season, but I still don't really believe in them. I think that they're a defense that gives them a lot of big plays, a lot of explosive plays. And, it can honestly come back to bite them at the end. So I think that game is probably going to be a lot closer than a lot of people expect. And I could see Zach Wilson, believe it or not, having a bounce back game and just not going off, but like playing very well against that Chiefs defense, who is bend, don't break. And they give up a lot of like explosive plays, a lot of yards. So I could see that being an interesting game. And I just hope for our sakes that it goes down to the wire, because, there's been a lot of boring Sunday night football games the last few weeks.
Definitely. We'll obviously talk with you, and we'll talk more on Extra Point tomorrow, as well as with James on Thursday, our Week 4 picks, and the rest of the weekend. We'll transit now to college football. Obviously, James and I talked a little bit before he came back on here. Isaiah, obviously, your Georgia Bulldogs are 4-0. My Ohio State Buckeyes are 4-0. Obviously, the Ohio State had a massive win on Saturday night against Notre Dame. Texas is 4-0. Michigan's 4-0. Washington's been absolutely fun to watch with Michael Penix. USC's 4-0. Oregon's 4-0. Utah's 4-0. And then LSU, Bama, Notre Dame all have one loss. In terms of your matchup, Isaiah, in terms of with Georgia, I really haven't gotten the chance to kind of watch them much, but they played UAB. I don't know if you got the chance to really watch most of it, but they won 49-29, 49-21. Is there anything that you want to maybe take away about that? And then this Saturday, they have Auburn on Saturday afternoon on CBS.
Not really, Ben, because I don't really watch when Georgia plays their non-conference opponents. Like if it's like a team that they're gonna beat, I don't really watch it. It just doesn't have any enjoyment to it. But I mean, Carson Beck looked really good in that game. The offensive line protected him much better than they did in that South Carolina game. The defense got a lot more pressure, which was good to see, especially that first half. So I would say those are probably those takeaways. But for Georgia, I think it always comes down to like three important games late in the season. It comes down to that Auburn game, which is going to be, even though Auburn's not what they once were, but playing at Jordan Hare, playing against Auburn at Jordan Hare. For some reason, when you play at Jordan Hare Stadium, there's always some weird, crazy stuff that just ends up happening. And it just makes no sense. Like Georgia's played there a few times. I remember the absolute insane the play where George or Auburn throws that Hail Mary and it gets tipped up in the air and it gets bounces off a Georgia defender's head and into an Auburn receiver's arms for a touchdown. Like there's just like a lot of crazy, like unpredictable stuff that happens there. And for me as a Georgia fan, I'm always scared to play Auburn there because if you get off to a bad start in that place with that crowd and that environment, like it can honestly be a long day for you. So I would probably say that game is very important for the Dogs, as well as definitely when they play Florida. Those games are definitely very important. And then if they play Alabama or LSU, those games are definitely very. That's the game that is you definitely gotta. Those games are the ones that you take the most pressure for Georgia in. So I think for Georgia, like they have to get off to a good start against Auburn because, like I mentioned earlier, if you get off to a bad start with Jordan Hare, how creepy it is, some bad stuff always happens, and you just cannot afford to get off to a bad start. You have to drown their crowd out early, and then if you could do that, then I think Georgia rolls in this game.
Yeah, definitely. We'll see specifically how that game goes. I'll try to maybe watch it when I get back from work, but um, let's quickly recap some of the highlighted games from week 4 before we do week 5, and then we'll probably call it a night. Obviously, Florida State Clemson was a classic. They went back and forth, and I'll tell you what, Jordan Travis and that team that he's leading right now, they're a really dangerous team. Obviously, you have Jared Verse on that defensive side. He's an absolute monster. And then obviously, um, their coach. Who's their coach again? I'm trying to remember. Their head coach. He's
For
doing a
what
great
team?
for Florida State.
Mike Norvell.
Mike Norvell, thank you. He's doing a fantastic job of that program. He's really confident, and to go into a place like Clemson, and I know Clemson's not the same team they once were, but to go in and I think Florida State was actually on a winless streak against Clemson for a while, and they were to break that streak. And it was a really good game. Cade Klumenik actually didn't play that bad. The biggest play of the game in that one, I don't know if you got the chance to watch it, was Clemson brought a kicker in that hasn't been kicking for months, and he came in at a crucial point in time in the game. He had a chance to, I think, get the Clemson to take the lead. He missed the kick. Florida State didn't get the chance to win it on the ensuing end, but then it was able to force it to overtime. If Clemson was able to make that field goal right before Florida State got the ball back, they probably would have won the game because that defense was playing really well at the end. But then Florida State um, had a monster play at the end there. That they have a really good receiving core there. Keon Coleman, who was he's been an absolute beast so far. He had 2 touchdowns. Jaheim Bell is actually a transfer. I'm pretty sure that I'm trying to remember the place he transferred from. I think it might have been South Carolina. Obviously, Stan, correct me if I'm wrong about that. But that game specific was an absolute classic. Really was. Obviously, I thought Colorado and Oregon was, but Colorado, they got humiliated. Going into Oregon, playing against Bo Nix, and that offense, they were just clicking the whole entire afternoon. Ole Miss and Alabama, and I know obviously you might have some stuff to talk about that game, but yeah, Alabama just seems very vulnerable. I mean, Ole Miss, I just thought I didn't get the chance to watch a lot of that, but Jackson Dart's a pretty decent quarterback, and I just don't know specifically how much of an input he was able to, move around with that defense because Alabama, they have a lot of tough other teams that they're playing against, and they're 13th ranked. This is one of the Alabama team that's just very. They're not the same dominant team, Alabama team that they once were, but they were able to get a good win against Ole Miss. Alabama has next week against let's see. Oh, they play Will Rogers on Saturday. So obviously, I obviously know who you're rooting for against for that game. And then just looking at else, obviously, LSU had a monster win, 34-31. Ohio State, Notre Dame, and then man, Penn State just completely defeated Iowa, 31-0. I mean, Iowa is just they're a team that's specifically on the down clips. So just kind of going through some of these games as a before we get into Week 5, a little quick preview. I thought Ohio State, in terms of my Buckeyes, had a big win. Obviously, like you mentioned, the Marcus Freeman stuff that you had off the air about the 12 men on the field right at the end there. I was still mind blown. But I also have to give credit where credit's due in terms of Kyle McCord because, Kyle McCord, I feel like, has been very inconsistent so far, obviously trying to replace CJ Stroud. And Marvin Harrison obviously gets hurt halfway through the game. He's trying to do what he can to come back, and which he did. Marvin Harrison didn't even have much of a game, really, that he played great in. But, guys like Julian Fleming had a monster catch at the end there. Emeka Abuka, who's essentially their second-tier receiver. Cade Stover's a really good tight end. You have Trayvon Henderson in the running game. Notre Dame, essentially, I felt like, had the game right there, but then I think it was just their clock management. They just, Sam Hartman's an absolute monster. I really like that Notre Dame team. And it was a classic to the end. And Ohio State was able to pull it, within 5 seconds and about a yard to win that game. So I would love to see potentially a matchup like against that in the college ball playoff that ever happened. But just the overall thoughts of the other games before we get into Week 5 here.
Ben, my biggest takeaways from this week of college football, I would say number one is that Dabo Swinney might leave Clemson soon for another program because it just looks like that Clemson program has just maxed out under Dabo Swinney. Obviously, they won 2 national championships. I mean, that was fantastic, but it just seems like the program is definitely on a downfall, and I just don't know how they can turn it around. It seems like everybody in the ACC has caught up with Dabo. Dabo tried to bring in a new offensive coordinator. That hasn't worked. The quarterback play, Klubnik, he hasn't played bad, but he hasn't played great either. So I just think Dabo, it just seems like when Jimbo Fisher left Florida State for Texas A&M because that program was just going down, it just seems like that situation, or when it just seems like Dabo has just maxed out at Clemson, and I think he's just better off maybe going to like another high profile program like a Florida if that opens up, or another top program opens up. I think that Dabo building that program, I think, will be good for him, and I think that we could see that coming in the next few years. That Clemson program, sadly, they are on the verge of losing at least 4 games because they still got North Carolina coming up. That's going to be tough. And they got Miami, and you cannot sleep on Miami. Miami's very, very good. I believe they're 4-0 now under Mario Cristobal. They're playing very physical, both offensively and defensively. Offensively, they're playing that air raid offense where they're allowing Tyler Van Dyke, their quarterback, to air out the ball 40, 50 times a game. And the problem with Clemson is their defense is very good, but they don't have any offense. They don't have really much of a threat on offense. And with Clemson, if you score like 30 to 40 points, Clemson can't match that. And I just think that I could see them losing to Miami. I could see them losing to North Carolina as well, and maybe even NC State, and finishing with 4 to 5 losses, which would be just absolutely disastrous for Dabo Swinney and his program. And then the other couple takeaways that I had is number 2, Alabama. I know a lot of people were writing articles and making videos saying, "Oh, Alabama is back. Alabama is back." Alabama is not back. I was not impressed at all by Alabama's performance against Ole Miss. They won because Ole Miss and Lane Kiffin just showed that they don't have a brain. And if Lane Kiffin just had half a brain and did the stuff that Steve Sarkisian was doing, Ole Miss would have won that game, Ben, by 20 points because Alabama's offense was just completely inept in that game. They had 11 possessions. They punted the ball 6 times. Jalen Milroe also threw an interception I believe they fumbled the ball. So basically they had 8 possessions where they didn't get any points. The other 2 possessions, they got points in them. And Ole Miss also gifted them one more possession. So they basically had 12 possessions, but they scored on 4 of them. They did not score on like 8 of them. So that Alabama offense is still not that good. The defense bailed them out. I just don't know what's going to happen now when they play these other top elite SEC teams, like a Mississippi State, who I know they're 2-2 right now, but Mississippi State and Will Rogers threw for 500 yards against South Carolina this past weekend. Imagine, Ben, what he's going to do against Alabama and that offense who they give up a lot of yards. They give up a lot of explosive plays. And I could see Will Rogers, especially at home, especially with how good that Mississippi State offensive line is blocking for him. I could see him just sitting around in the pocket all day long and just going off against Nick Saban's defense. And if Mississippi State can put up 30 plus points, I just don't see Alabama being able to match that offensive output by Mississippi State. And then you look at the other takeaway, and then you look at the other teams like Texas A&M, who's playing very good football, LSU, who has played well after they lost to FSU in week 1. I mean, Alabama, I still maintain it. I think they're primed to lose at least 4 games this season. And if they lose 4 games, Ben, oh my God. Imagine the talk coming out of Tuscaloosa at the end of the season with Nick Saban. Like, would Nick Saban seriously consider retiring if they go 7-5 or if they go 8-4? Like, that would be beyond Nick Saban standards at Alabama. And then I would say the last takeaway is, Kyle McCord shut up all the haters this past week. I know that people were hating on him. Some people, including Ohio State fans, didn't think he was the real deal and the right guy for Ohio State. He shut them up with that last clutch to 1 minute 26-second drive where he led them all the way down the field with some great throws down the stretch, especially in that drive, to help Ohio State come back and win that game. Like, I was very impressed by the kid, especially when it was like 3rd and 19, that play where he puts it right on the money to the receiver. I was impressed with some of the throws that he was making. And if he could do that against Michigan, or if he could do that against Penn State, I think that Ohio State could definitely shock a lot of folks. And, they could end up honestly winning the Big Ten this year, even though it's not supposed to be their year. I could see them winning it just because McCord just has shown that he could be a very clutch quarterback down the stretch.
And Ohio State, too, I think Ryan Day has kind of heard the noise as well, but their defense for Ohio State is really good, really sound, and I'm really excited to kind of see where the rest of the season takes us. So let's quickly go into some of the games for this weekend, and then we'll probably conclude for tonight's show. We'll talk about, obviously, I talked a little bit quickly with James, USC Colorado. That's obviously the game that everyone's trying to probably circle on their calendar, put on their map. Of course, I have to work during that time of the game, so I'll probably have to record it. But, you have a team in USC who I didn't watch the second half of that game. I watched a little bit against Arizona State. But James, of course, telling me he wasn't thrilled in terms of kind of the finish that they had. But they're going to Colorado to take on Deion and that team. And I don't know if you heard, but apparently Deion Sanders was saying that Travis Hunter texted him about trying to play this weekend. And I know that Travis Hunter had a concussion and he might be out for a couple weeks. So if Travis Hunter is going to try to play in this game, that changes a lot of things because he is absolutely explosive, a guy that they could definitely have in their team. But what are some of your storylines quickly for this game specifically? Thursday, we can make our picks for this game if you want.
I'm looking forward to it, man. I think this is going to be a shootout. Both USC and Colorado, they don't play any defense. And if Colorado gets off to a fast start, I could definitely see Colorado winning this game. But, man, we are in for a treat. You thought US or TCU versus Colorado week 1, that was great. That was a great game. But this is going to be that game, but on steroids, Ben. Like, I could see this game being like 63 to like 56 with these two offenses just going up and down the field against each other. Travis Hunter, I did read that he texted Dion that, but Dion shut it down immediately, saying, "Hey, Travis, you have a brighter future than I ever did. Go get healthy, my man." So it looks like that he's going to be out for this game. And also another big blow that I don't think a lot of people are talking about is Dion's other son, Shiloh, who plays quarterback. He also could be out for that game because, according to reports, he had to go to the hospital after suffering an injury against Oregon. I think he might have lacerated a liver or something like that, so he could potentially be out for that game, and also for the next couple of weeks. So it just seems like Colorado is just suffering such really scary, serious injuries at really bad times right now. And I think a lot of people didn't mention this when Dion first took the job. It was like everybody mentioned, the talent discrepancy and other stuff like that, as to why Dion might not be successful as a Power Five head coach. Another thing a lot of people didn't realize, when it comes to the transitioning from the FCS to the FBS and the division or the Power Five, is that people hit more harder in this league, man. Like, people hit harder when you play in Division 1 Power 5 football. And Dion's, I think the kids at Colorado are realizing this. Travis Hunter, lacerated liver, had to go to the hospital. Then Dion's other son, Shiloh, he had to go to the hospital because he suffered a big hit, there was a big hit and he suffered a big injury because of it. There's a lot of hard hits in this Division 1 Power 5 football, and you have to be very physical, and it's very physical football. And I just don't think that they realize how physical Division 1 Power 5 football is.
100% agree. Obviously there's a lot of storylines and stuff to look out for, and Dion only had a couple wins, I think, last year, and obviously the fun start that he had, obviously upsetting TCU, that was ranked, and then beating Colorado State as well too. But yeah, we'll see where things go with that team specifically. Obviously, it's gonna be fun to see what they do against Caleb Williams on Saturday. Um, Now, in terms of the other games of this weekend, James is telling me kind of the slate hasn't been that exciting, which I agree with. I mean, maybe Florida, Kentucky. Kentucky's 4-0. Florida's 3-1. Graham Mertz has been kind of up and down. Georgia and Auburn, like you said, there's some interesting stuff at that stadium for Auburn. So we'll see specifically that game's gonna be close. Michigan is going to play in Nebraska. I think Jay McCarthy and company is going to wipe them the floor. Kansas and Texas. James didn't mention that game, but that could be interesting. I really like Kansas's quarterback. I don't know if you guys chance to see him play, Jalen Daniels. Really explosive guy, 82.0 QBR right now. Obviously playing against Quinn Ewers and company for Texas. So obviously those two games, I mean, Texas right now is a 17-point favorite. But I do think that the quarterback plays really fascinating in this one. LSU Ole Miss, you have quarterback play between Jaden Daniels and Jackson Dart. So that could be really interesting. A lot of good, well-known quarterbacks going at it, kind of like last week. Notre Dame and Duke, you have Sam Hartman against Riley Leonard. That's going to be on Saturday at night on ABC. Saturday night as well, you have 2-2 South Carolina with Spencer Rattler against Joe Milton. And then Alabama and Mississippi State, you got, I guess, Milrow, who's probably going to still start against Will Rogers. So, I mean, Isaiah, there's a lot of interesting games in this one. Utah, number 10, Utah against Oregon State might actually be the best game, and that's on Friday night. So, what's the game that you're looking at specifically here? If there's any type of intriguing game, of course, outside of USC and Colorado.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of intriguing games this weekend. Obviously, Michigan and Nebraska. Like Nebraska, for some reason, despite how bad they are, they always play Michigan tough. That's always a game that's like, man, Michigan is always in a dogfight into the fourth quarter of that game. So I could definitely see that game being a dogfight for sure. Some of the other games I'm looking forward to. I think Ben, I think you know where I'm going to go with this. Alabama versus Mississippi State. This is Will Rogers' turn to show the world, since he's going to be on national TV, that hey, I could be an NFL quarterback. You only get certain points of the season and certain moments to show that hey, and to jump out to scouts to tell them like, hey man, you should draft me for sure. And Will Rogers, I just feel like has been very underrated his entire career. A lot of people don't really know about him or even talk about him because he plays at Mississippi State. If he was putting up the numbers that he put up at another school like Alabama or Florida or even Ohio State, I think you would see a lot of people putting his name up there as potentially a first round pick. But since he plays at Mississippi State, his success gets hidden there at Mississippi State. So I just think that you look at that game, Alabama's vulnerable. Their defense has not really been that good. They bend don't break a lot. Ole Miss should have scored a boatload of points. Alabama's offense has struggled a lot. Mississippi State's defense is very, very physical, led by their new head coach of Zach Arnett. I think Will Rogers has a chance to upset Alabama and really put his name up there with some of the top quarterbacks in the NFL draft this upcoming year. And I think that he has a chance to really show the world that, hey, man, I'm a very good quarterback and really establish himself. So I think this game could definitely be an upset, especially it's in Starkville, not in Tuscaloosa, which makes it even more in Mississippi State's advantage. So I hope the Bulldogs take advantage. Other games, Georgia Auburn, because Auburn always plays Georgia very tough at Auburn. And then I would probably say the other games that I'm looking forward to besides USC Colorado. Um, I'm trying to look at the slate right now. Kansas at Texas. You're right, James. I mean, Ben, that's a very good game. Kansas has been a very fun story this season. I don't think anybody expected them right now to be undefeated and to go into Texas to play Texas. Texas, for some reason, Kansas has had Texas's number in the past. So I would not be shocked if Kansas upsets Texas. And always when those two teams play each other, it's always very high scoring and it's always very fun to watch.
Yeah, we'll have to see in terms of how the slate goes. We'll make maybe some picks for college football on Thursday night. So without further ado, that'll conclude for tonight's show with Kicking with Kruse. Like I mentioned, it's good to be back. Last week obviously I was really recovering from COVID, so it's good I'm back and obviously I'm doing a lot better. And obviously that means that we'll do two shows this week to obviously get our content and obviously to keep on going for the next pretty much the football season and forward on as well. Thank you, James, Isaiah, and James for joining as usual. We're going to now final thoughts, Isaiah. In terms of for final thoughts for me too, I mean, I think it's going to be a really good weekend of football. Like you mentioned, Isaiah, postseason baseball is going to be just around the corner. It's been electric coming up soon. Already kind of with some games to look forward to this weekend. That could be previews of some teams to watch out for next week. We got basketball in the next couple of weeks. We'll talk more about that probably next week because we just have a lot of stuff, postseason baseball and football to kind of look at right now. And hockey. I mean, I love hockey myself. Preseason hockey's already started. So, fall weather's around. New England weather, nothing better with that. And just, kind of just going through here. Glad I'm doing better and looking forward to Thursday. I'll try to be on extra points tomorrow on 50-50. I have to be up really early on Thursday. So we'll see how things go. But Isaiah, final thoughts.
Final thoughts is it was a great show. Ben, great to have you back on the program, man. We definitely missed you last week, so it's great to have you back. But yeah, we are definitely entering into one of the best seasons when it comes to being a sports fan. We've got baseball last week of the season, football, college football, and the NFL this weekend. I mean, this weekend's gonna be absolutely insane. With everything going on. And then we have NBA Media Day coming up on Monday. So, I mean, basketball season is definitely coming up. Hockey, like you mentioned, we have preseason hockey already happening. And then, buckle up for next week, Ben. We got baseball postseason. We've got the NBA back. We've got the NFL, NFL, college football. I mean, it's going to be absolutely bonkers starting next week, man. It's going to be great. Can't wait to cover it and watch it as a sports fan. And looking forward to Extra Point tomorrow. We got a lot of games on the slate that we'll talk about week 3 as well. Talk about some of the big news, like Justin Fields, to see the real answer in Chicago or not. What should the Bears do moving forward? As well as the Jets. The Jets, I mean, Robert Saleh might be out the door mid-season. Who knows with everything that is going on. So it's a great show tonight. And yeah, man, looking forward to tomorrow as well as Thursday.
All right. Well, with that being said, that concludes for tonight's show of Kicking with Kruse. So without further ado, this has Ben Kruse alongside Isaiah Leon. Have a great rest of your night, guys, and we'll give you the outro to finish out tonight's program. We'll see you guys on Thursday.
Oh my God! Big goal to go from the 2. Toss sweep one for James White. Puts it under the runner. Puts it upfield. Driving forward. Diving to the goal line. A touchdown and a title for the Patriots. I can't believe it. Play clock at 5. Pass is intercepted at the goal line by Malcolm Butler. 45 remaining. Tatum drives down and throws it down. Bases loaded. 2 out. Hard hitting to right. Back at the wall. Tie game. Big Poppy.
No icing. For the first time in 39 years, the Boston Bruins have won the Stanley Cup.
Anything's possible!